Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about something that you may be doing to others. They may be doing it to you. It has a pretty significant impact on your life. Or it may be a term that you've heard a ton of times and you're not even sure what it means. Today, we're talking about gaslighting. Yes, gaslighting. We're going to dig into that. We have success strategy coach Tom Marino with us. Hey, Tom, how are you today?
I'm great, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. And I'll be honest, a while back when I started hearing that term, and it seems to be very relevant now, I had to actually look up what gaslighting meant. I wasn't even 100% sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And you know, it's more common of a term used today, I think, by that younger generation. But it's something that, you know, has really surfaced a lot in my coaching business and with a lot of my clients, especially in how they feel they've been treated by their parents. And it really comes into self-confidence and how it disrupts your self-confidence and creates self-doubt. So, you know, gaslighting, just to be technical for a moment, it refers to the intentional attempts to manipulate you into doubting your feelings, perception of events, and reality in general. You know, if someone's trying to gaslight you, they want to confuse you and make you doubt yourself and make you more likely, you know, to go along with what they want, right? So it's important to recognize that a lot of people use this term very loosely, but understand that there is an intentional component to this, that someone is intentionally doing this to you to create a different reality for you that really does not exist, right? You know, not to pick on politicians, but politicians are very good at gaslighting. You know, they'll gaslight their opponents, like, and deny that certain things, no, that didn't happen, and no, you must be crazy, or you're overthinking that, or, you know, you're imagining things. That's a very common term. You know, you're imagining things, you don't know what you're talking about. Those are terms that are used by someone who is gaslighting. Now, in your everyday life, somebody may say the same thing to you, but it's the intention with which it's being used, right? It's so I use politicians as an example because they're the ones more likely to say, you're imagining things. That's not how it happened, right? When someone doesn't take blame, and this is where the to me versus for me mindset comes in. Mm-hmm. It's part of that mindset where, you know, you're blaming other things and other situations and creating a construct that really didn't exist.
Tom, I really think you're overthinking everything right now. And the word overthinking, I think, is a classic connection to the gaslighting. That's one of the terms that kind of fits within there. So I wonder, is narcissism similar to gaslighting?
Yeah, there's some overlap. Yes, a narcissistic will gaslight, right? Because part of it is their attempt to make you love them, right? Because that's what a narcissist wants. A narcissist needs to be loved by everybody. They need to see themselves as, oh, everybody loves me. And, you know, I can speak of a specific president that we recently had that was very narcissistic, but I won't go into that here. But the bottom line is that there's this desire to be loved by everybody. So if you want everybody to love you, you have to pretty much create the reality for which they will love you in. And that is where they'll try to confuse you to thinking differently about a situation, or it's a manipulation. You have to remember, it's a manipulation. People with borderline personality disorder, people with, and in the clusters of personality, borderline and narcissism are in the same cluster in the DSM-5 around, you know, being that what do you call it? That emotionally based, you know, manipulative type of personality. And that's where the manipulation is the key.
How do you, while we're on narcissism, and by the way, when I heard that term, I don't know, like a year or two ago, I had to Google that one too. What that meant. How is narcissism, or a narcissist, how is that diagnosed? How is that officially determined that that person is doing that they are one?
Yeah, well, that is one of the things, in psychiatry, when you look at the DSM, there's personality disorders are different type. They're a class 2 type of diagnosis, and most people do not diagnose people with personality disorders. Okay. So, but there are traits that people exemplify in their day to day that puts them into that category. And a lot of people will shy away from that. I remember teaching this to the PA students at Downstate when I was teaching intro to psychiatry. I did that for many years at Downstate in Brooklyn. And I remember saying, someone has a personality disorder when you think they're a complete a-hole. Bottom line, that's the bottom line. That's how someone has a personality disorder. So think of people in your life that exemplify that complete, a-hole personality type, where you just, no matter what you do, they think they're better than you, or they try to squash you down, or they don't take any recognition of themselves, and their self-awareness is very low, and they're very manipulative, and they always seem to just be that jerk, so to speak, right? And and that's kind of how you look at it. And you could think of several people in this world that just have significant personality disorders.
I don't want to go there. I don't want to think that. But when you think that, it's like, well, you know what? I guess that is the case for certain people that, in your circle that's in your mind after you just said that.
And personality disorders really create our predispositions to other forms of mental illness, right? Like we see a very close relationship between a borderline personality, somebody who can be your best friend one minute and your worst enemy the next. That manipulation, that type of manipulation where they're very friendly when they want something from you, but the second you don't give them what they want, they turn on you. That's a borderline. We see a lot of that correlate to people who have bipolar disorder. You see bipolar disorder, that person who cycles between mania and depression, and there's two different types of bipolar, but you are looking at someone who is cycling from that Jekyll and Hyde kind of place, right? It's a borderline is a Jekyll and Hyde kind of place, and it's when you get into all of that, most people with significant personality disorders, personality type disorders, they have some other very diagnosable mental disorder. So there is a way to see it, and there are strong correlations between personality and whatnot. Like we have odd personalities, like schizoid personality. A schizoid personality type is more predisposed to schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder and other types of mental health situations. The thing is you can't treat a personality disorder with medication. You can't treat that. And that's probably the easiest way I can explain it. You can't treat a personality disorder, but you can treat the other mental health disorders that manifest as a result of some predisposition for something else. But that's getting way into psychiatry more than
I find it fascinating. And I think a lot of people do. And you don't hear a lot about it. Right. Not going deep in, just kind of wondering about this, and then we'll get back onto gaslighting and even narcissism, because I'm seeing a correlation there. Can you, let's say if somebody, you suspect they're bipolar, or maybe you suspect they're a narcissist, can they be a little bit in that direction, or is they are, and that's what it is? You know what I'm saying? Is it can kind of toe over the line?
Here's any time someone diagnosed with some kind of mental health disorder, like a bipolar, depression, and anxiety, there has to be an element of functional impairment in your day-to-day life, right? How it impacts you, whether in your work, in your relationships, or whatever, there's some kind of functional impairment that exists when diagnosing somebody with, say, a bipolar disorder, right? They can't function. They cause major disruption to their relationships. They find themselves in financial holes because in some of their mania, they're going and spending $50,000 on a credit card, or
that's a classic bipolar.
Yeah,
you go on a spending spree.
Yeah, exactly. You go on a spending spree, or you go into a hypersexual state where those are very manic tendencies. But there's significant functional impairment, right? You don't show up to work, because you're doing all these other things, right? You're not able to really take care of yourself either in those situations. You may not eat for days. You may not, because you're high on that mania or that situation. But it really is something that you can't say is a little bit of this. If you're saying it's a little bit of that, it's more likely a personality thing. But if it's more functionally impaired, it tends to be more of a diagnosable, treatable situation. So that's where you can draw a distinction, right? Like we all have little tendencies towards personality type disorders, right? I mean, some of us are a little odd, right? Some of us are a little eccentric, right? Eccentric and odd is one.
Little quirks.
Right. Anxious and avoidant and fearful, that's another type of cluster. And then you have your borderlines, your narcissists, your histrionics who are very dramatic, right? So like people who are dramatic and have these tendencies towards always being surrounded by drama, that's more of a personality issue than a diagnosable problem.
So
right?
what I get from that, Tom, is that you use the a-hole analogy before when somebody's definitely that.
Yep.
I guess it's almost when it's a personality thing, it's the difference between somebody being a jerk or a full-blown a-hole.
Right. Well, that's absolutely it. Right. Exactly. And that's the thing. And not having that awareness, it's the awareness and the understanding of what you're actually doing. And that's where, people who are borderline personalities, narcissists, they may be more intentional about gaslighting. They may be more intentional in their manipulation to make you feel lower than them, like you need them, right? Because they trivialize, right? Part of gaslighting is trivializing things, right? Minimizing your feelings about it. It's almost like you're overreacting. That classic, no, I'm not overreacting. I'm having an emotion right now. I'm allowed to have that emotion. I'm allowed to have a reaction, right? But you're trying to trivialize that and make that less in me so that I question it and I doubt my reaction to the situation, right? So trivializing is one of those tendencies of someone who's gaslighting you. And that could be someone who's manipulating you, who can have one of those personality disorders.
Don't a lot of guys do that in terms of, let's say they're with their partner, they're having a discussion and they don't really, a lot of guys don't communicate. They just, I don't want to deal with it right now. It's sort of like, and is it always gaslighting or manipulating, or he just doesn't want to hear it? Like, I don't want to deal.
It's the intentionality behind it that I would say is really important to understand. Are you intentionally doing it? Like, do you set out to when every argument that you have with your partner to put them down and make them feel less than? Because if that's your intention and if that's your mechanism, then you're gaslighting. But if you just don't want to deal with it and you're pushing it off, is it really gaslighting? Probably not. But again, tolerance and things like that change, right? Our tolerance to things changes. We may start out without that intention, but then that becomes the intention of every situation, right? So it's how do you maintain your control and whether or not you are manipulating intentionally. And, it's really, this exists everywhere. You see this in the corporate space, right? You see this in the corporate space all the time, where your thoughts or your suggestions are being minimalized, or they're being diverted, right? Like a boss, you may have a great idea about something, you approach your boss with it, and they say to you, "Oh, thanks for bringing up that concern, but here's where we're really going to head," right? And they immediately dismiss it. It's almost like a dismissive diversion kind of. But you see this in friendships, you see it at work, you see it in your relationships, you see it all over. It doesn't exist in just one place, but it's being able to recognize that, right? And being able to recognize that is critical, because if you can't recognize that you're being gaslighted, you're going to have a difficult time with your self-confidence and believing in yourself. And, there's a lot of feelings associated to how you're going to feel in those situations.
We have instant feedback. By the way, we're talking with success strategy coach Tom Marino. You can find him at tommarino.com. And Christine checks in from Hamden, Connecticut. And if you've got a question, got a comment, it's instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. She says, my husband is very controlling. He definitely gaslights me into thinking that I'm always wrong. What do I say to him when he does that?
Well, I think you have to present the facts. One of the things that, if you read a couple of the articles, and I found this really great article on Healthline, think you're being gaslighted, here's how to respond, right? It's 8 ways of dealing with gaslighting is the easy search. And this is where I'm talking a lot from the article from. But gathering evidence, gathering facts, sticking to facts, being certain about your facts, right? Don't allow that person to create doubt in yourself. If you know something to be true, present the facts, right? That's kind of like what I tell people too. In any situation where you're going to have difficult conversation, remove the emotion from the conversation and focus on the facts of the situation. You want to create facts, right?
Yeah.
And you also want to create space. Like, instead of going at that person and saying you're doing that again, say, we're going to take a break from this conversation right now, and create that space. Go somewhere else, get into a different place, because creating the space is necessary, right? And, one of the things to kind of stop gaslighting too that they suggest in articles involving other people. So if you can engage with that person around a third party who's going to see the facts of the situation, that person may actually help in the communication process, right? So, if your husband is always, if they're very controlling, that is controlling is a form of manipulation, right? So you've got to be very aware of that. Like, what are the aspects of your life that they're controlling? And you've got to regain some control over those things that they keep controlling. But that's part of it is how do you respond is you know yourself, you you're telling the truth, that you're not imagining it, and you have to have your confidence that that's the case, and what was the rest of our question?
Basically that was it. I think you answered
Okay.
in terms of how to, and I love what you said about the facts. You can't change the facts. So let's say hypothetically in Christine's situation, let's say her husband talks about the money situation,
Right.
and let's say he's minimizing the fact that he's spending a lot of money, whatever it might be. All right, well, here's a credit card receipt.
Right.
What's that? What's this? What's that? I think that's
Exactly.
powerful, and that backs up, to your point that you're not imagining it. This is real.
Right. I mean, collecting evidence is always good, right? And that's where you have to be detective also, right? It's kind of like you're a detective in your own world. And it's not to make you paranoid or to make you more self-conscious about these things, but it is to back up your argument, right? So like one of the things that they suggest is saving screenshots of texts and emails, right? Like, that you said this. No, I didn't say that. Oh, it's right here. It's right here in blue and white or green and white, however it comes up on your phone, Android or Apple.
Yep.
But it's right there. So save screenshots of things, like take pictures of things that maybe they can exaggerate in the future, or they can try to change what like really happened, right? Oh no, I didn't hit the car. I didn't bump the dent, put a dent in the bumper. Well, yeah, you did. Here's the picture of it.
Pictures
Right. So
don't lie. People do.
right. People, don't, and it's when you're dealing with this in a professional space too. And I want to bring this to a professional space, because when you have a boss that's doing stuff that is gaslighting you, right? That's making you feel less than, start to keep a trail on those things. Keep a trail on the emails, keep a trail on the conversations. Don't try not to have a conversation with them without a third party present, right? This is where a lot of people, if you're feeling this right now and you feel like you're being gaslighted by your boss, request HR be present at your next conversation. Have that protection, because HR is there as much to protect the employer as they are to protect the employee. They're that neutral third party to really help you get your point of view across if you're struggling to do that.
I would be always afraid to call in HR unless it's absolutely necessary. Like you've already gone through a number of situations where this is this could escalate into a different situation. And of course, as you're collecting your facts and everything, because you never know how that's going to go.
Right.
Bring them in.
Yeah. And Steve, it's important to recognize if you're really being gaslit, right? If you feel a certain way, if you're doubting or questioning yourself all the time, if you're apologizing frequently, if your immediate response is I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, that's someone who's been gaslit their entire life. They're constantly apologizing, right? If you wonder if you're too sensitive or not, or if you struggle making decisions, you're being gaslit in some way. And I see this I have a client that, her whole life, she was an only child. She had parents that were very instructive and prescriptive on what she should be doing with her life. And now she has no self-confidence or no trust in herself to make good decisions, because she feels like if she makes a decision and she's not good at it, it doesn't work out, that now she's only validating what she heard all those years from her parents, right?
And
So
she'll be judged. And she'll be judged on her decision.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm sorry I did that. I'm sorry I made that mistake, right? And so it's that constant cycle over and over of those things.
It's almost like the analogy of kick the dog. Once you keep kicking the dog is going to react the same way. And in this situation, the dog she is going to be afraid to make decisions. And just what you said, I know somebody that's very similar to that. And she had addiction issues way back in the day, got divorced, and her ex back then, he had to be gaslighting her because everything you just described is what she's like. Right. You could say anything and she'll say, I'm sorry. And then she'll try over and above to please and make, everything okay. Decisions, can't make decisions, worries a lot because she can't make the right decisions to move things forward. Right. And without a doubt, and even to the point during her divorce, and this is just an example, her ex minimized everything to the point where he got a big attorney and she got not a smaller attorney from a small firm, and she got, if you will, hosed in the entire deal because he made her feel that way.
And that is just blatant manipulation.
Horrible. Yeah.
It's blatant. It's more than it's blatant manipulation.
Yeah.
And one of the things we have to realize too is we can self-gaslight, right? Based on our experiences of being gaslit, right?
Wow.
We can say to ourselves, oh yeah, if someone says you're too dramatic, you may say, oh yeah, I am very dramatic. And you start to believe that, right? But the way you got to turn that around is my emotions are valid. My feelings are valid. One of the things I always tell people to do is feel their feelings. Feel your feelings, express your feelings, be able to express your feelings because they are valid. You feel them and they really should be inarguable. But someone who's gaslighting is going to make your feelings very arguable or make you feel crazy or make you feel like you're overreacting or you're too sensitive. So be aware of how somebody else's gaslighting you turns into your own gaslighting when you're struggling in a situation or you're feeling less than.
That is so important what you just said, because no one can take your feelings away from you. They're your feelings. If you're feeling it, you're feeling it.
Right. And own it and allow yourself to feel it, but do something with it, right? Take an act, don't dwell in it. Take the action and pull yourself out of that feeling. Say, I'm feeling this way. How do I really want to be feeling? And then move to that place.
Let's talk about how you help people. Maybe somebody's listening, watching, going through a similar situation. It doesn't, now we say success strategy coach, but success is also succeeding in your life, your personal life as well.
Right. Yeah. Success is all about how you define success for your life. And that's what I really help people to do is I help them to define what that success looks like for them. And then we work on the strategies to get you there. And that's what I mean by success strategy. Sure. And it should be your life success. That's what I'm focused on, is your life success, not your personal, not your professional, your full life success, not separating the two. So, if you are, and gaslighting, a lot of my clients suffer from that. They've been the victims of gaslighting. So, if you want, reach out to me at tommarino.com. That's tommarino.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at Tom Marino Coaching and DM me, send me a message, leave a comment on my website, and I'll be happy to offer a complimentary session to you to just talk to you to see if there's something that we can work on together and if I can help you.
Yeah, I'm so glad we talked about this because the term keeps coming up, and I'll bet, like almost guarantee, people are watching, hearing this, and didn't realize that maybe they were being gaslit, or
Right.
maybe they were doing it. Kind of figured that out, put the connected the dots, and figured out what was actually going on for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have a pleaser and avoider saboteur, you're a prime victim for gaslighting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Tom, always a pleasure. And you've got such great insight on everything, and and relevant stuff too, which is why we love having you on. I appreciate it.
Fantastic, Steve. Thanks for having me. It's been great. I'll talk to you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Are you or somebody you know saying this? I just feel like I have no energy. I'm tired most of the time. I just feel fatigued. I just can't get moving, and it's just lethargic. And then do you chalk it up to, well, it's a change of season, maybe where you are, it's getting a little chillier, and maybe that's it. But then again, maybe it's not. We're going to dig into that and find some possible causes and cures of that. And she is a holistic health and wellness coach, and she's back with us. Lynn Wadsworth is on the program. Hi, Lynn. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad we're talking about this because I am always transparent and very honest. And I got to tell you, last couple of days, and I don't think it's the weather, that I've been thinking, I just feel tired. Sometimes after I eat, I'm just like, blah. And that hasn't been, I can't remember the last time I felt that way. What are your thoughts? What are some of the causes? Let's start with that.
Well, there are so many. You mentioned seasons. I think when we change seasons, things change for us, and we have to really start thinking again about how am I going to manage this. So people laugh, but here in Florida, we've been experiencing lows in the high 40s and highs in the low 60s, and I'm complaining. So that makes me feel kind of tired, and I just want to snuggle up somewhere because it's cold. So there is that seasonal thing. You don't want to get out and exercise because it's cold. Things change, our bodies change, and we have to remember that we should be eating seasonally. So most people just carry on their same routine throughout the year, which we can do here in Florida because we're normally a pretty stable temperature.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, the healthiest way to eat is to eat in season. So you have to think about, well, what's in season in my neck of the woods? So for me, I can get hold of anything any time of year, but if I'm trying to eat seasonally, you begin thinking about the autumn foods, and that can really have an effect on how energized you can feel. But let's face it, so for many people, energy comes down to lack of sleep. We know that that's a given. We know if we haven't slept properly, what does that mean for us? Well, we just feel lethargic the next day. But what if it's not just that? So I can tell you that when I was working full time, I'd wake up tired. I'd go to bed tired, and come 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I literally fell asleep at my desk more times than I'd care to say. And sometimes I would, how you're doing something and you suddenly jump awake. And that's what would happen to me. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, luckily I was in my own private office.
Right. Yes.
But
you know what? As soon as you said that, Lynn, I felt it. Like, it's just like you just kind of get in the zone. It's like, and then I'm falling asleep. Wait a minute. Whoa.
Yeah,
Wait, whoa.
yeah.
Back to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, there can be medical things that are going on. So you always need to check with your doctor. Adrenal fatigue is something that not so much in Western medicine do we talk about, but we certainly do in the health coach realm and in the Chinese medicine realm. It's a very real thing. And one of the things is that you tend to want to fall asleep mid-afternoon. That's one of the adrenal fatigue signs, and there are things that you can do for that. But overall, if you're feeling fatigued, you want to start looking at things like, well, yeah, what is my sleep like? And is my sleep good quality sleep? How's my exercise? Am I hydrating? Am I taking care of myself? I mean, those are all key things. One of the big things is how we eat. So there are certain foods that can make us feel energized, and there are certain foods that can make us feel sluggish. And if we don't eat well, we have to think about, we're gaining weight. Do we maybe have food allergies? Are we a little bit, is this making us anxious, depressed? Do we have belly bloat, maybe even IBS, constipation, low energy, low sex drive? All of those things come into play when we're not eating well. But the fatigue is a huge one, and we don't even realize it. And some of the foods that you might want to add to your diet are things like leafy greens, avocado, berries, the healthy oils like coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil, because oils get a bad rap. We all think,
you know what? Can I jump in there just for a second? Just what you said. And a really good friend of mine is big on coconut oil. And I thought that it's not the best thing for you for many different reasons. But you're saying coconut oil is good.
Coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil. I mean, you've got to compare it, and you've got to think what you're using it for, because like olive oil, you can't really cook to high temperatures. Coconut oil, you can go a bit higher.
Yes.
Avocado oil is a good alternative. So the idea is we're supposed to get so many helpings of good, healthy oils, fat, into our body. So fats include things like nuts. But if you're cooking, you want to think always about using something healthy. You're going to feel more energetic. If you're so here's a funny thing. When Burger King first came out with their plant-based burger alternative, my husband said to me, "Oh, this is wonderful. You can go to Burger King with me now, and you can have one of these plant-based burgers." And I'm like, "But how do they cook the burger? Do they cook it on the same grill as the other one? What kind of fats are they using?" So, I mean, you always have to think about, well, just because something is supposedly healthy, how's it being cooked when you go to a restaurant? Because you can ask, and you can get them to change it, or you can get them to say broccoli, they steam it, they put loads of butter on. Now, is it butter or is it margarine? If it's butter, I would much prefer to have butter as an alternative, but you don't want it loaded down, so you can ask them to go light on it. Don't put it in there. Other healthy fats are actually things like flax, hemp seed, chia seeds, things that we don't necessarily think of. You don't always have to use olive oil or avocado oil. You can switch it up. Another really good energizing thing is coconut water. So it's very healthy for you. Sometimes I'll put that in my smoothies instead of water, or I'll do half and half, because it does have lots of good minerals and vitamins, different things that are going to hydrate you better. So, it can all be in what you eat. And then you've got to remember, if you're feeling fatigued, you've got to forget the foods that promise you a miracle in a box, or a bar that promises you a miracle in a box. You've got to learn to be your own label detective. And very often we go into the store and this says healthy. But if you look at the ingredients, maybe it's got one healthy ingredient in there. So when you're looking at how tired you are, ditching processed foods, getting rid of the sugar can be huge for you.
I wanted to share a couple of things, Lynn, based on what you said. So you talked about Burger King and their non-meat patty. I've recently been, and I eat meat, but if I can find something else that's not, why not? Starbucks has a breakfast sandwich, and I think they call it the Impossible Sandwich. And it basically it's impossible
made with impossible meat.
Yeah, it's so good. So I have to believe it's not being cooked on a grill, because it's sitting there. They heat it up. How good is it for you? I don't know. Tastes good. And it's like 21 grams of protein, obviously lots of carbs, but not super high in calories, maybe 400 calories for a breakfast. So that's one thing. And when we talk about fatigue, how do we define it? Is it just I'm feeling tired for a few days? Is it ongoing? We have that feeling. And also, when it comes to fatigue, what about if you only feel it certain times of the day? These are things that go through my mind. I'm always wondering about these questions.
So I think that if you've got short-term fatigue, that's pretty normal. Maybe something's going on in your life. Remember, stress is something that really can make us tired, depressed. You've always got to keep in mind, if it's long-term, you want to see a doctor. Maybe there's something going on. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe there's something wrong. But if you're just thinking about it from a perspective of, like I did, every day I would have this fatigue. It would not go away. It didn't change. A couple of times I did treat myself with the help of a kinesiologist for adrenal fatigue, and that made a huge difference. And I went from being tired all the time to having the energy.
Was it? I just want to go back to that, Lynn. Were you tired all the time?
All the time.
You
yes.
just couldn't get past it. It's just
yes.
like, you think of a task ahead of you, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I could do it. I'm just dragging. I feel like there's a 100-pound weight in back of me as I'm dragging along in life, and I just trying to get to the next step. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. And then you have to remember, with something like adrenal fatigue, now there are people that have it at a young age because there's usually something else going on in their lives. But very often, like we talked about last time, when you're thinking about midlife, your hormones are all out of whack. And our adrenals have things to do with that. There's a greater drain on our adrenal glands during that time. So we're more prone to something like adrenal fatigue. So, you've always got to think about, where am I at in the present moment? It's great to keep a diary to see what am I eating? How much am I sleeping? How do I feel when I eat a certain type of food? This is something I learned from dealing with migraines for years. I was very bad about keeping a journal for it. But when I became a health coach and I was trying to change my life, I paid attention to how does this food make me feel, because it can be a certain food that might be draining you.
Right.
Maybe it's something you've eaten all your life, but as we get to a different phase of our life, maybe it doesn't sit so well in our body. So it's really the long-term fatigue where you've got to be a lot more careful. And, I would suggest you go to your doctor, you ask for a blood panel before you even try to fix it on your own, because there can be something else that's underlying the whole fatigue thing.
Have you experienced that talking to some clients where they would tell you, or you traced it back to a certain food? And
yeah, mostly it comes back to the processed foods that we eat and the sugar that we're eating. I'm a huge proponent of ditching the processed foods and getting off the sugar, because it can be life-changing when you do something like that. And I'll tell you now, I'm a sugar addict. If I start eating things with sugar, I can't stop. So
you know what?
Yeah.
Same exact way. And, wow. I'm glad we're talking about this, because we're not alone. And it even was last night, and I've derailed on my eating. I got to get back on track. And there was a little jar that somebody gave me for my birthday, like a month and a half ago, full of candy, like just chocolates. And I walked by and I'm like, I was just about to reach in. It's like, yeah, it's late at night. I deserve it. I was just about to reach in. I'm like, then you don't do it, because you're not going to be able to stop. And I stopped. But yeah, can we talk about that sugar addiction? Yeah, it's real.
So there are people that can, obviously dark chocolate can be healthy for us. And especially if you're looking at something that's like 90+% cacao. So for my clients, if they want something sweet, I might say to them, well, eat a couple of pieces of dark chocolate. I personally cannot do that because I'm a sugar addict.
Right.
Those 2 pieces will turn into the whole bar. And then I'll be back into the refrigerator or the freezer thinking, and what else can I eat? So it took me years to figure out that I was addicted to sugar, because we don't think about foods as causing us to be addictive. But I do know I have an addictive type personality, so I could easily become addicted to alcohol, or I know that I was addicted to narcotics because of my migraines. And so I'm what I call an addictive personality. And if that's you, then it's very often best just to get rid of it and just not eat it. So the same chemicals in the brain that affect a drug addict, whether it's pills, cocaine, whatever it is that you're taking, those chemicals in the brain are the exact same chemicals that are at work when it comes to sugar. So that's why you can become addicted to it.
Can we talk about that for just a moment? And you said this is why it's resonating. When somebody has an addictive personality, are they, or can they be addicted to many different things? For example, I know somebody who I believe has an addictive personality, and I believe that even in relationships, she becomes obsessed and addictive with them, like just all over them, just even in the beginning stages of the relationship. And she also has substance abuse issues in the past. But then you would find her gravitating toward, other narcotics, or it could be alcohol. So is that addictive personality in the brain is just something that they're just addicted to things?
I think so. I think it also, though, can go back to an emotional thing.
Sure.
So if you've had trauma as a child,
absolutely,
of course, that can cause that. Some of it is really just lack of knowledge, because so when I got off the narcotics for my migraines, I felt so much better. I was lucky because at the time I was going through a program with Tampa General Hospital, which was a holistic program for migraine sufferers. Plus, I was in college for learning how to be a health coach. So I could easily have changed one addiction for another, which is what I'd done in the past. So, for example, one time when we came to the States, we were stationed out in Utah. I was totally on my own, didn't know anybody. So my mum and dad used to make their own wine, and I happened to love apricot wine because it's nice and sweet, and I brought lots of bottles back with me. So the kids were in school. I didn't even think about it. Every afternoon I'd find myself drinking a few glasses of apricot wine because it made me feel better. So that's often what the addictive personality is looking for, something that makes you feel better, which is why very often it's linked to the foods that you eat, or you go to something that gives you comfort. I stopped drinking the wine, then I probably went back to chocolate since I was a chocoholic. But
by the way, I just want to add in there, I didn't know they made that kind of wine. Wow. It sounds delicious.
Well, apricots, of course, we don't get here in Florida, so I have to wait for June for them, and they're never as sweet as where you can pick them off the trees.
Right.
So yeah, anything, but again, there was lots of sugar in it, so it was still part of that sugar addiction that I had not recognized. So for me, I would have to completely do away with the sweets, do away with the chocolate, because I couldn't have it. But, word of caution here, in the processed food industry, which we go to for convenience, the chemicals that they use and all the additives that they use to make it taste better also are addictive. And this is why you'll see people that always have the same cereals or the same snacks or the same type of things. The low fat, no fat alternative that was so big here a while ago, what they did was they stripped all the nutrition out of these foods, and then they add chemicals and preservatives and artificial flavors to make it taste better. So where we all thought we were doing ourselves a great service, we're doing ourselves a disservice. You're better off with the full, whole food experience and maybe not eating quite as much. So maybe buy some Greek yogurt and add in some fresh strawberries or something to make it more fruity for you.
This is enlightening because now you're making us all think, if we gravitate back to the same type of stuff, and I'm a creature of habit. A lot of times I'll eat the same thing every day, or same thing for breakfast. Just like it's easier. But now I'm thinking about it. Like, do I go back to those same things because of what's in it? And full disclosure, it's not the most honest thing that I'm eating, or the most healthy. Maybe there's a reason because of what's in there. Same thing as, we've heard for decades at fast food restaurants. There's certain chemicals that go in, of course, sodium. We can be addicted to sodium. Things that are in there that gravitate us back because they want to sell those. And billions of dollars are at stake. Millions of dollars, millions are in research to get you and I on the same page to want to go back to those fast food restaurants.
Right,
So,
absolutely.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I always think back to when I first came to the States. I was used to going to the grocery store every couple of days, going down to the baker's every couple of days to get fresh bread. Came to the States, and of course we shopped at the commissary at the time on the base. And the first time I went in there, I saw this whole aisle packed full of bread. And I'm staring at this bread and it's saying it's good through, and it was like weeks down the road, and I'm excited because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can buy this and I don't have to keep going out to buy bread. Well, then I didn't know it was the same thing. It had been stripped of its nutritional value, and there was all these preservatives and chemicals in there. And to this day, I unless I'm absolutely desperate for a sandwich and I don't have bread, I will always go to somewhere like our Publix where they've got a bakery, because it's the healthier option. It's a fresher option. Long ago, I used to make my own bread, but don't do that anymore.
And same thing. Used to have the bread maker, but the smell in your house is like, oh.
Yes.
But to your point, I can't believe, Lynn, you're bringing this up right now. Um, I I don't drink milk. I'll take a little bit and I'll drop it in my coffee. I mean, a tiny bit. I have it in the refrigerator, smallest container that I can have, a quart, whatever. Because in case my daughter wants to use it, for something. It expired on October 1st, and I'm waiting for it to go bad. And just this morning, I had coffee, and I just put a little bit in there, and just to cool it down, and just a little milk in there. Again, minor. I unscrew the cap, and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't smell bad yet. And today we're at the 20th of the month, and it's still good. So, to your point, the pasteurization, everything, and same thing with the bread. I've got I low carb wraps, and I've never seen mold on them, and I'll go like a month past after it's open, by the way. So yes, there's it's almost scary. It
It
really
is, because to that point, I buy my bread fresh, and of course, I don't eat bread very often.
Same.
So mine goes moldy within a week. And the
Well,
birds
good
love
for
our,
you.
yeah.
Well, good for you.
The birds love our house because they get all this bread.
And when would you ever say, "I'm so glad my bread went moldy. It went bad. Fantastic. That means it's good."
They used to sell it in half loaves, but they don't do that anymore.
Interesting. Well,
But if you buy fresh like that, you can take half of the loaf and put the rest in the freezer. I don't like to take it out of the freezer and then use it for sandwiches, but it's good for toast. It's good if you like a grilled cheese sandwich.
But this is enlightening again in terms of what we're eating. Thinking, maybe gravitate toward organic, maybe not buy as much processed food. And I've heard it. We've all heard it for years. But what we're talking about is now real life proof that this stuff isn't good for you, because there's no way that that loaf of bread is going to last. That milk, how can it? If I went to the farm and milked the cow myself and had a quart container, it wouldn't last now. And I don't even know when I bought it. It's got to be a month now, since I bought it. It doesn't smell, doesn't taste bad. I don't know. Yeah, scary, very scary. And we're putting that into our body and then wondering why do I feel fatigued? What's going on? Your body might be reacting. But you had a great point before, keeping a food journal. Remembering to write down what you're eating so that you can trace it back to how you're feeling after it. Very important.
Right, it is.
I want to tell everybody your website. Please share that with everyone.
Yes, it's holistic-healthandwellness.com.
And anybody that has any questions about coaching, and food is a relationship, so it starts with a relationship with a coach like you. They can reach out. Do you have a free discovery call?
I certainly do. It's again on my website if they would care to do the contact information page. And on that page, they can just contact me, or they can email me at lwadsworth@verizon.net.
Sure. If anybody has any questions about even fatigue, that's where we started today, and went into sugar addiction, which I'm glad we did that too. Because I would have to think there's probably 3/4 of us are addicted to sugar.
Absolutely.
Might not know it or might not want to admit it, but we are. Any questions you might have, Lynn is an amazing holistic health and wellness coach. Lynn, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks. It's always a pleasure, Steve.
Same here, and learned a lot. And I'm looking forward next time we get together. Who knows what we're going to talk about, but you know what? It's going to be impactful. I know that. Yep.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
when I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house, and there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back, Tony Moralt from Lead Left, Grow Right, the Leadership Quotient. He's an author, coach, friend, foe, you name it. He's here to talk more about, of course, his book and some other great topics today about what happens when you're tired of leading. So welcome back, Tony. For those new people out there listening today or watching, would you mind just giving us a little recap of who you are, what you do?
Absolutely, Jill.
Thanks.
Thanks for hosting again today. So my name's Tony Moralt, as Jill said. I was in the Navy for 9 years on serving on 3 different ships, taught at the Naval Academy, and then I got out of the Navy and went to work in the corporate world. And I worked there for a little over 25 years. And over that entire time, from the time I graduated from the Naval Academy until present, I've always been a huge student of leadership. And as I went, in particular, my journey in the corporate world, rather, I began to write 3x5 cards to myself of little quotes that would remind me of things that I did well or things that I didn't do as well, or that other people did well or didn't do as well. And eventually, I've always wanted to write a book, and a book on leadership. And so I've distilled that all down into the Leadership Quotient, and that's what we've been covering. So that's kind of my background. I have my own company now where I specialize in leadership and also in looking at integrative process management and process assessment.
Wonderful. And if we want to reach out to you, tell us the website.
leadleftgrowright.com, all one word, leadleftgrowright.com. You can contact me through leadleftgrowright.com. There's a contact form. You can submit the questions there. Or any kind of feedback, or you can email me at tony.moralt@gmail.com. And you can also call me at 816-694-4656.
Perfect. And to still recap from last session, in a sense, you say practice makes professionals, right? Someone were to ask you, what are the top takeaways from the conversation on leadership? What would you tell them? And then we'll get into discussing our new agenda for today.
Absolutely. So the reason I say practice makes professionals is because leaders aren't born. Leaders are made, and they're made well or they're made terribly. And my whole premise in the book is that everyone is a leader. So it doesn't matter what your station in life, what part of the team you're on, whether you're a frontline contributor or whether you're the CEO of a company, you are a leader. And in order to become a better leader, you have to, and the analogy I've used throughout the book and in our conversations has been, if you have a bunch of different leadership skills that I present in the book, think of it as a closet, and just like any piece of clothing, you got to take it out, try it on, see if it looks right for the outfit you're assembling, or whether the size fits, etc. And so practice makes professional means once you've identified a leadership skill that, hey, this works for me, not all of Tony's do, but this one works for me that he talked about, then you have to practice it, because just taking it out and putting it on one time, say, that works for me. Well, if you don't practice that, then the next time you're confronted with a situation where you could pull that leadership skill out of your tool belt, you won't be able to do it very well because you haven't practiced it. So with that in mind, if I were to summarize the entire book, and I'm not going to cover it in detail as we did last time, but I'm going to cover the highlights again. The key 8 items that I talk about, one is don't be mediocre. Be great. Strive for greatness. And if you come up short, you're still going to be pretty awesome. Hold yourselves and everyone else accountable. A lot of times in society, people are not holding themselves accountable. They point fingers at other people, or they say, well, that wasn't really my fault because I didn't have the training or whatever. Don't do that. Hold yourself accountable. And if you did something wrong, strive to become better the next time. Encourage people's hearts every day. We are humans. We strive for, doesn't matter if you're an extrovert or introvert, we strive for having and we value human connection. Well, if people do a good job, then you have to encourage them and thank them for it. If people are struggling, you still have to encourage them so that they get through the tough times, because as we know, life is not always easy. So encourage people's hearts. The fourth item is to really grow leaders in your organization. You can't just assume it's all going to happen by itself. You can't just assume that most corporations will identify a golden child or someone with they call them high potentials, right?
Yeah.
Well, you have to go further than that in your organization, because there's so much leadership within your organization that you can grow at every single level. So grow leaders in your organization. And the practical reason for that, if you're a business and you want to make money, is you want to retain your top talent. And if you're going to retain your top talent, then the way that you do that is to have good leaders in place, because as I noted before, Gallup survey after survey says the number one reason by more than 50% that people leave a company, they don't quit the company, they quit the manager or the leader.
Yes.
So we have to have good people in place so that, you know, you feel like you're respected, that your true talents are growing and thriving, and then you will want to stay with a company for a longer period of time. Talking about this, the leadership quotient itself is not just some made up thing. It is a model that talks about balancing 4 quadrants and trying to improve in those areas that you can. And I would posit we can all improve in every single area, even if we think we're super awesome. Let's say in terms of EQ, getting to work and know people, you can always get better at any of those quadrants. Even if you think you're the best in the world, you can always become a little bit better. Number 6 is a core part of this book, which is in order to gain power, you have to give it up. And that means if you're going to become a great leader yourself and focus on the right things, then you have to be able to give up some of your control to other people. That doesn't mean you give up complete accountability for it, but you have to be able to give up some of that authority, some of that accountability to others, and inspire trust in them by doing so. Let them do tasks. Most people will rise to the challenge. So that's what that's about. Number 7 is about focus on serving them. Focus on serving the people. Some individuals like to focus on themselves. And we see that in society, particularly in some of the younger generations, not all, but some, because of these electronic devices that they have, it makes it much easier to become narcissistic and attached to what's in it for me. And you want it to be what's in it for us and how can I serve them?
Mm-hmm.
And then last is to really get to know your people. Every one of us is a unique creation. We all bring a lot of different talents and skills. It's up to the leaders to unearth those talents and skills and use them for good within the workplace and just to get to know people better. And oftentimes leaders don't do that. They sit in the high office and don't come down amongst the people kind of thing. So those would be the 8 encapsulations, I would say, of the entire book. I would still encourage you to read the entire book because there's a lot of other meat in the book to absorb and reflect on. But those are kind of the 8 key themes that as I was writing the book, I wanted to bring across. So hopefully that is what happened.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. And, moving along for today, we're going to walk down the path about talking about those that get tired, right?
Right.
When you get tired of leading, and we'll talk about that. So let's start there.
Yeah.
How do you know when you're tired? What symptoms might you start observing?
So that's a great question. A lot of times, I guess the first thing to say is a lot of times people have to be honest with themselves about whether they're actually becoming tired or not. And tired is it looks like you're under mental duress or mental stress at a minimum, but sometimes you're just so exhausted mentally, and it can be from a variety of things, right? It could be from things that are happening in your personal life. It could be things that are happening in your professional life, but mentally, that is a key area that people often don't realize until they're already have kind of gone over the cliff, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I just can't do anything. I'm paralyzed with everything." Another area is physically. You're physically just exhausted all the time. We're not talking about, most of us at the end of the workday, work is work, and it's tiring. We're not talking about that. It's where you're just completely wiped out, and you're just like, where am I going to find the energy to do this tomorrow? I know what my schedule's like tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if you constantly get into that kind of repetition or behavior, then you know that you are starting to have some significant systems that your body is shutting down mentally, physically, and it looks like things. And we'll talk about leadership next, but you can't think clearly. Just all those kinds of things. You might forget stuff. Oh, I was supposed to do this. Bring home the gallon of milk after work or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's all those things that it turns into. And then when it comes to leading, that then turns itself into poor decision making.
Yeah.
If you are so exhausted physically and mentally, you're just not at the top of your game. So you start making poor decisions, and you just hope and pray that it's not a big decision that you're making. Hopefully you've built a support network around you and your team that will help you with that. But you just get physically tired. I know many years ago I discovered I had sleep apnea, which is where you just stop breathing at certain times, many times a minute. And what that looked like for me, you could tell I was physically exhausted, is I came into work and at 7:30, and by 8 o'clock I found myself face planted into my keyboard. And so that's when I began to investigate, and sure enough, that's what it was. So I was physically being deprived of oxygen and of sleep, and it really had a deleterious effect on me.
Yeah.
And then that when your body's tired, then that leads into your brain being tired and not being able to function. So as a leader, it might appear as poor decision making. It could appear as with your team that you're snapping at people. And so as a formal leader, you have to watch out for that even in the members of your team, because they may be going through some of that same destructive situation where they're just either they're physically tired or mentally tired or whatever. And you start seeing them snapping and saying, wow, that's really out of character for Jill to do that. She's,
exactly.
Right. But it happens. So these are just some of the ways you might, as a leader, for instance, begin to forget that you have an assignment to do a task, and you've now assigned it to 3 different people separately, and you forget that you've already assigned it to 2 other people.
Yeah.
It's those kind of lapses or gaps in your thinking. That's how it starts showing up as a leader.
So
does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you ever get tired of leading?
There are times, yes.
All right.
I was on this very, very large project. We're implementing an ERP, which is the entire computer system of the company. And the hours were very, very long and very, very exhausting. And I would just go home wiped completely out and barely able to get going the next morning, because it was just such a mentally and physically demanding job that I was in. So there are things that I did to try and counteract some of that, and we can talk about that in a second. So I think one of the things that you have to determine is if you're tired, and I'm not saying take a sabbatical. You know, I mean, that's great if you can do that, but typically that's mostly in academia. So most of us don't have the luxury of taking a sabbatical. But when you are tired of leading, then you have to find ways to pass some of the leadership on to others. And so one of the first things you have to do is say, well, who's the right person that I want to pass this on? And so some things, you know, things that you might consider are, you may officially have someone who is a high potential, we'll put the air quotes up, high potential person who's on your team, and say, okay, well, maybe I can start passing some of this stuff on to them. Or even if they're not high potential, but there's someone that you've observed in your interactions working with the team that you say, you know, they're really good at this particular aspect, or maybe several aspects, and they've expressed a desire. And so you begin to give them some of the responsibilities that you might have. A friend and I were talking about leadership just yesterday, as a matter of fact, and he said that he had an individual one time who said, you know, they were an engineer, and they said, you know, I think I might want to get into management, but I'm not exactly sure what it's about and stuff. And so she asked for to take like his place, to take some of the other leadership responsibilities that were already going on, and just do it for a day. And she did a fantastic job at doing that. And again, in order to do that, you have to give up some of your control. But when you do, boy, that pays huge dividends. Either she'll find out that, hey, I'm not really cut out for management. I don't really, or I may be cut out for it, but I just don't want to do this. Or, wow, I can do that. And later on, when she did get promoted into management, she said, well, for instance, giving performances, well, that was pretty easy for me because I did it just for that one day, but that one day was enough for me to kind of understand what was going on. So, those are some of the characteristics that you want to talk about. And, you know, a key thing you have to decide is, do I want someone who's cut from my same mold, or do I want someone who's cut from a different cloth and maybe has some other kinds of skills? Depends what you're going to, how you're going to structure that leadership. Let's call it an easing of leadership for yourself. And once you identify, okay, here's the things that I really could, you know, this would really help me either physically or mentally to not be as tired. Once you identify those kinds of things, then you can begin to think about what are the right kinds of people that you want to resource. And a lot of that, honestly, will depend on what kind of conversations you've had with individuals on your team about leadership. So if you go in with a position that I always went in, which is everyone's a leader, well, you hopefully have already begun at that point doing lots of different activities to get people to get comfortable with assuming leadership responsibilities at either a smaller or more major role. And so if you've been doing that, it's a lot easier to, you know, go out to the garden and pick a carrot than have to grow it from seeds right up. And so all of that preparation work that you do as a leader, that then assists you when you need to take a pause or you need to offload some responsibility. And a good situation could be that happens quite frequently. You've now been, in addition to your regular responsibilities, you've been tasked with being on Project X. And Project X is a big project that's going to consume 40 or 50% of your time. Well, that's when you need to get someone to help with some of your normal leadership responsibilities. So does that make sense up to this point? Jill? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if you realize, but my face is getting red. I'm having an allergic reaction. Do you see this? To the T. So I've been going, so I muted the button. But look at it. It's a special herbal tea that I've never tried. And my whole face is on fire. And I'm starting to, so I apologize. I'm here, but I'm gurgling.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Look how red I'm getting. It's crazy. I'm returning this.
well,
it's good for me.
If it gets too bad, let me know. I can call the hospital.
I'm just itchy. It's okay. I think I'm going to be okay, but I can't believe this. I'm having an allergic breakout, but sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you need to take a break, basically. Is
I
what
need
we're
water.
saying here.
I got
You're
water
right.
here.
Yeah. All right.
Oh.
So another thing that goes along with that, once you've chosen someone, is then you have to say, okay, what does the accountability structure look like? So let's just go with that example about Project X. So if you're going to be spending up to half of your time working on Project X, you still have to have some way of communicating with the leader or leaders that you've done some load shedding with and given some of your responsibilities. So what does that look like? And you have to sit down and agree with them ahead of time. Is it do they leave you a weekly email, or what if there's a really important major decision that has to be made? How do they go about doing that and presenting that to you? How often do you want to be kept in touch? Some people might want to be kept in touch daily. It depends, again, on your level of control and also your level of trust with that individual. So you have to select them carefully, but then you also have to understand what is the mechanism going to be to hold them and yourself accountable as you go forward. And those kinds of things can definitely be fleshed out. Things that you might want to turn over or assist with resources that people have, are you might want to introduce someone to an HR person if you're going to have them doing a lot of the people kinds of stuff. You're probably going to want to go over through some sort of in the Navy, we used to call it a turnover. So if one officer was leaving, let's say they were the operations officer and a new operations officer just reported aboard, you'd do a turnover, which could be everything from all the classified documentation, turning that over to and anything else. And corporations are that same way. So what are the kinds of things that you have to consider turning over as you begin to work more and more on Project X? Well, you have to have a discussion about people on the team. Who are which leaders have the greatest strength on your team, because hopefully they believe, like you do at this point, that everyone's a great, has the opportunity to lead all the time. What kinds of meetings do you want to go to versus having them attend as your direct representative? Who has responsibility for submitting, let's say, reports? Let's say your boss has to have a report once a month or once a week. Well, who's going to do that? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be them? So other projects that are going on that you want them to be aware of. So you have to create a turnover list and then make sure that you cover those kinds of things, and then make sure it's written out. One of the things that we've talked about, the leadership manifesto before. Okay, are you going to be gone a significant amount of time that you want that individual or those individuals to develop their own leadership manifesto and just share it with the team, even though they're not the official leader, but just since they're taking over some of the responsibilities, do you want them to also let everybody know, okay, here's kind of my pet peeves, or here's kind of my vision, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe yes, maybe no, but at least consider that in the discussion. And then I think, we talked about how do you select people, what kinds of things do you go over, how do you identify when it's time for you to do that, and it could be just physical or mental exhaustion, but it could also be you're assigned to Project X kind of thing. So then let's say everything's kind of calming down on Project X. Well, how do you take the reins back? That's a key question to ask. And if you can give enough forethought, you probably want to talk over that with folks as well, and let your teams know. Part of what you can do is let your team know, okay, Mary's going to be taking over while I'm on Project X, and she's going to be doing this, that, and the other thing. So if you have any concerns about Project Y or Z, Mary's the person to go to on that. And then taking the reins back, you're going to have the same kind of discussion. Okay, which projects are still out there to remain? Are there any people issues? You have to have all those kinds of things. And then you just have to be ready yourselves. You have to say, you know what? Okay, I'm re-energized, or I'm off Project X or whatever it is. I'm ready to take the reins back. And then you want to talk about the passing of that control or retaking the mantle or whatever expression you want. So you're going to have to transition back to, and it won't necessarily transition back to the old state because things change in a corporation and organizations, but you're transitioning back to a state in which you are the appointed leader, and how you take away those tasks. So, so I think, a friend of mine and I were kind of debating about, okay, what are some topics to cover in the podcast beyond that? And this one really struck me as one that, yeah, that's a really great topic. So I thought I'd share that with you today.
Beautiful. Well,
with our audience.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And we still have 2 minutes left. What else did you want to share, Tony, about you, your company, and how you're here to help those lead?
Well, I think a couple of things, just to maybe talk about upcoming topics that I may talk about. And I'm always open to feedback. So if people have a desire to hear about these or any other topics, one thing is, how do you set up leadership experiments? What is a leadership experiment? How do you set it up? And how do you address accountability, both during and after the experiment occurs? How do personal and professional leaderships translate from one to the other and vice versa? Because some leadership traits definitely will translate and cross the boundaries. They may just change form. And then what about leadership challenges that exist across generations or ethnic cultures or corporate cultures and all of those different dimensions? So those are some topics that I'm considering for future podcasts as we look at that. And so, again, through any of those mechanisms I talked about earlier, email or leave me a voicemail or call me directly, please send those to me so that, I can kind of determine where it might be good to slot that in and whether I have enough expertise to share on a particular topic.
Great. Well, thank you. And if we want to reach out to you, would you mind sharing the best form of contact, Tony Morrell? As I gotta go get some allergy medication. Look at my face.
I know. My gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so much for the special potion that's good for my stomach and digestion. I shouldn't have been the first. Wow. Tell us how we can reach out to you so I can go get an allergy pill.
Tony.maralt@gmail.com, through the website, leadleftgrowright.com, or call me directly at 816-694-4656. And if you're interested in the book, you can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, The Leadership Quotient by Tony Maralt.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck, Jill. I hope you get better.
I'm getting a pill right now. Bye-bye. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house, and there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
This is one of those things that a lot of us take for granted. And we encounter these things every single day. I'm talking about design and architecture of the places we live and work in. And if it wasn't for this guy, there's be a lot of places that wouldn't exist right now. He's an accomplished and well-known architect in the New York metro area. And John Riggio joins us on the program. Hi, John. How you doing?
Good. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Today, we're going to dig into the technology that's used for architects nowadays to make the work easier, to make it easier to present it, but also on the other side, the client can really absorb what your design is based on all this technology.
Yes. Today I want to show you the new technology that I talked about, the 3D generated drawings. And I have something new where we're going to make a walkthrough through the house that is already 3D generated. And it's going to show all the rooms, furniture, and everything like that. And I have it on my webpage, so anyone can go online. They can take a look at it. And if they like it, of course, they can give me a call. This type of 3D rendering is usually part of a construction project, a design I would make. I usually don't just make renderings for people. It's usually part of the set of drawings, the design, and this way the owner can visualize the design that I'm giving them, and they can look at it, see that they really like it, and then we can go ahead with finalizing the job, and they could start construction on the project.
So what stage do you do a 3D rendering? Is it common to do it for most projects or only certain ones? Or I guess if you charge the client or they ask for it?
Yes, only on certain jobs, usually a larger project, either new construction or major renovation. And usually after we finalize the design is when I usually make the rendering. This way they can take a last look at it, make any final changes. And they like to use that as a just like a check is to see that they really like how the house is going to look. So that is where I make the 3D rendering. It's really at the end of the design process.
We're going to take a look at that in just a second, but kind of curious, how often when somebody's looking at the 3D rendering, do they make changes? Does it happen fairly often where they go through a room? It's like, oh, wait a minute. Nope. I want to move the staircase there or whatever it might be.
Usually they're just very small changes. By the time we finish the design phase, there are some small adjustments. People might rethink something, move a closet, door, slight adjustments, but usually they're just very small changes. And then also with the 3D rendering, they get an idea of the colors of the finishes of the house, the outside, the inside of the house, the different kind of floor surfaces, things like that. And this gives them a way to look at it and see if they want to make any adjustments to those type of things, to the texture of how the house is going to look.
Excellent. Let's take a look at that right now. Can we do that?
Okay, let me share this here.
By the way, if you want to check out this video that John's going to show us and some of the other portfolio and services, you can go to his website, johnriggio.com.
Okay, so here this is johnriggio.com. This is the main page where you see the introduction here, and I have on the top of the screen it says home, portfolio, services, about, and contact information. And it just shows 3 projects, and it just explains here about my work in the local area. And so from here, we can go down to, say, portfolio. And from here, I'm showing different kinds of jobs, residential, commercial, retail, medical, industrial, public, landmark. And then at the bottom, I have here 3D computer renderings. This is just a small picture of one of them. And from here, you would just click on either the picture and we go to the page that shows the renderings. Now, overall, the page is going to show some pre-made images of this house. Now, this is a brand new house. It's going to have superior wall foundations. It's all wood construction. A lot of things like I-joists and things like that are in this building. It has a curved rear wall for a very nice family room. And so that is the rendering pictures here. And now the walkthrough of that same house is right here. It's a 6-minute video. I'll just show it now. And it's gonna go through the whole house. We're entering into the front door here. So this is very good 3D software. Shows the different materials. There's the brick on the outside. You're seeing the wood flooring. And now in this video, you also see the different furniture, some basic furniture, so you get an idea of how the room looks.
Wow. How accurate is the rendering to what the final construction will look like? For example, you have looks like 6-panel doors there. Would you definitely be using those, or is that kind of like a decorative choice in the end?
Yes, the door is just like a standard door.
Okay.
They might use a slightly different door when it comes to installing it. That was a decision that a lot of times the contractor might talk to the owner about before they install it. There might be a price consideration with that also. But these are usual type, this kind of panel door, 6 doors, it's pretty standard today. A lot of that, it's a composite door. Most doors are composite and they're pre-molded to look like that anyway.
I like the paint job on the 6-panel doors, by the way. I never think to do that. You know, a lot of times we just put a semi-gloss over the entire door. It's white, done, finished. But that's a nice treatment. So in the other room that we looked at, I think it was a entertainment room or it was some kind of living room, and there was a number of windows in there. Is it always going to be the same number of windows? Is that's
Yes.
one of those definite designs that doesn't change?
Yes.
That is the design. Okay.
That's correct. Yes, all the window placements are to scale here.
Okay.
So they're going to match how they're going to look here. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful house. Was this is this a current project or was this house constructed?
Yes, it is. Yes, this is a current project. It's just starting construction on this house.
Oh wow. Do you ever go to the job sites and take pictures as it goes along, progresses?
Yes, I do.
Wow. Yeah. I would do the same thing. You would love to, get a feel for, the before, after, the progress of the project. So this is what are we looking at here?
Because now we're going into the family room where you see the arched wall there with the windows. It's 2 stories in height.
Yep.
And now the stair is going up alongside the family room. We're going to the 2nd floor now. We're going to show all the different bedrooms.
Silly question, but I got to ask it because I'm curious. Are the number of risers in those stairs, let's say it's, I don't know, 15, whatever the number is, in this rendering, is that the actual number when constructed?
Yes. Yes, it is.
And reason I ask that, John, is just to see the level of detail when you get to the 3D rendering.
Yes, it is. Everything is to scale, so that it is the same number of risers and treads.
So cool. Wow.
So this is showing the entrance here. Here's the bedroom, and then we just walk over there through where the hallway is.
Wow. How many bedrooms in this house?
I'd have to look, but I think it is 5.
Okay. Wow. Amazing how detailed it is. And what a difference to see it with furniture.
Yes, this rendering has all the furniture, there's window treatments on there. It's very detailed.
And again, the furniture is a staging, if you will. It's not, somebody can put up whatever furniture they want in there, but this is kind of an idea of what you could do.
Yes, you just get an idea of how it's going to look. Now, this here, walking through the lobby here.
So I just saw the stairs, and interesting thought.
This is the washroom. The washroom on the second floor. Everyone likes the washroom on the second floor today.
Oh, wow.
They didn't want to bother too much with the washroom in the cellar anymore. We had extra space on the second floor to put the washroom. So you don't have to walk all the way downstairs.
I'm only going to say one thing, that I had that in my first house, which was a townhouse, and on the second floor, and it leaked. So one day I was going to work, and it was about, I worked afternoons that time, and I was leaving at about 11 o'clock in the morning. And I walked through the living room, and out of the lighting fixture was a waterfall. And yeah, one of the reasons for that was the drainage wasn't good. And the only remedy on that, you can't redo it at that point. So I wound up having a metal pan fabricated with walls on the sheet metal about that high, maybe like 6 inches, whatever, all around it, with a water alarm. And I only used the washing machine when I was home, and that would give me time if it were to overflow again. Never did, of course. That was the only remedy at that time. I'm sure you take provisions to make sure that that's not going to happen. That the drainage, there'll be a way for the water to get out.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard too many problems like that on the second floor. That's the first time I've heard of someone really having a machine leak over and things like that.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is the builder of that townhouse and the entire complex, how can I say this? Didn't use the best construction techniques, and bedrooms were cold. I remember my daughter at the time was a baby, and it was always cold facing the north side. And I went and had thermography done and shot the walls, and came to learn there was no insulation in those walls.
Yes.
And by the way, this builder was also a car dealer, had a car dealership or two, and got caught by the federal government for not doing the right thing with the dealership. I forget what the whole deal was. Did jail time for that. Not for the construction issues, but yeah, he got caught eventually. So, don't do the right thing, you get caught.
Oh, wow.
Looking at the stairs, I know somebody that does, I don't know what it's called, but it's wire in between, as opposed to having, wood slats. Interesting look. Have you seen that? Is that getting more popular now?
It's usually used in commercial construction, but yes, I've seen those. Yes, they have wire in between them. Yes.
Yeah. Commercial construction, or you might see it balconies of hotels and things like that, to not obstruct your view. However, I've seen it in a few houses, and it's just kind of cool, like a different feel to it.
Yes. Yeah, they usually have like certain different options for like a handrail and the balusters and everything. And they have those. I've seen them around. A lot of times they're used in commercial applications.
And usually the wire is horizontal, pulled across, but the guy, and actually in the building I'm in, he does that. There's a company connected to a company that does that. He told me that, yeah, you can also have it done like you have it, but with wire. The only difference is way more expensive, because now you have individual panels, whereby if it's horizontal, the one piece of wire goes across, a bunch of panels.
Yes.
Just a different look. This is spectacular. Looking at this, wow, like just a striking home. And now, okay, so this is the view of the windows that we talked about before that were in the living room from upstairs.
Yes, these windows are the ones shown here. If you look down here, you see in the rear of the house is a family room, and there's a curved wall. It's 2 stories high and has these long windows.
Oh, wow.
That's what we're seeing here in this video. We're looking from the second floor hallway over the railing, and it's showing the curved wall with the windows.
Wow. Yeah, very nice. Did they ask for that, the homeowners, or did you kind of do that and show it to them and they liked it?
Yeah, they wanted to see the, like a walkthrough and outside of the house, inside of the house. Yeah, they wanted to see all kinds of different pictures of the 3D rendering.
Ah, amazing. So for start to finish, to get to the rendering part of this project, start with the plans, you work along, maybe with some suggestions from the homeowner, you get to the 3D rendering. What's the time frame typically for something like that?
Yes, depends on the size of the project, but usually I would start off with the initial design, and I would take maybe 2 weeks. And then from there, we would go work on the design. The work on the design depends on how long they really want to go over it, make revisions, see what they like in the design, and that could take maybe another month's time. Then after that is finalized, I would then make the 3D rendering, and I'd also start the construction drawings. And the construction drawings is usually like 6 weeks. That's the standard time. It's usually 6 weeks for that time. Then after that is finished, on a larger job, there's all kinds of engineering drawings. The drawings have to get sent over to the engineer. I get them back. Everything is coordinated, and then they can go apply for their permit, which usually takes a minimum of 3 weeks or more. And from there, they can start the construction of the job.
Talking with John Riggio, architect. You can find him at johnriggio.com, Riggio. What's your favorite aspect of the project, John? Is it when you get to the 3D aspect where you get to, have a little fun with that? What do you like the most when you start a project? Is it?
I think the best part of the project is when I think everyone sees that the house design looks really good, and they all like it, and then the neighbors start calling, and they say, "Wow, I like that house. I want to build something just like it." So it's really like during construction of the house, I really get a lot of feedback that they really like the design, and they all start calling. I think I have one here. I have a showcase of new two-family house, and this what I did is here is I show the different phases of the construction of the house. This is a 5,000 square foot house here in central New Jersey, and it shows here the foundation. This one, it was a standard port foundation, and it shows the wood framing here. Then it shows here more wood framing as the construction progresses. Then they're starting to finish it. You see the bathroom, the tile work, painting the walls. You see they have the lighting, recessed lighting in place. You see they have the balcony in the rear of the house looks good. And then over here they have more pictures of the house here. You see this, you see the windows, the panel windows are in place. They have the washroom. This washroom has a custom countertop here with a sink. And that door goes out to this balcony over here. Then this one shows this bathroom has very nice tile work on it, and with glass shower doors. Then this here is showing some of those double height spaces. This is showing the entrance space with arch window, very nice chandelier here with wood on the handrail. And you see with this, the balusters, they went with like an iron baluster.
Yeah.
Instead of wood. Then this here, this is like the next one here is the kitchen, which has like island and stool seating, and has like the family room with the fireplace. And that's what's over here. This is the family room with the fireplace, couple windows here. This is showing a picture from the family room towards the entrance of the house. And then over around the corner this is their room. It's a prayer room. And then this here is some more pictures during the construction. The kitchen with the kitchen island shows the two pendant lights, have the panel windows in there, and the different cabinets. This here is another photo showing the kitchen area from across the room. Then this here I show some other construction things. This is in the cellar. This has a very large 6-inch steel columns, has a main steel beam in this house. It's very large. And this is showing some of the different types of things we have here. We have a electric hot water heater. This is new. It's high efficiency.
Yep.
And the electrical panels, the mechanical system, 98% efficient air system. And this is showing the cellar with the large open space here. Then this house also has a half story, has an attic, and it's showing here the spray insulation. So this here has a lot of technology, and it has a spray insulation on it. You see it's in between the roof rafters, and you see the mechanical system is split. We have one unit in the attic and one unit in the cellar that I had already shown there, and that's what's shown here in this picture. Now this is a picture showing the whole attic from one end to the other with the stair in the middle. Then this is showing some exterior photographs. This is the rear of the house here. And we have the balcony here. We have the steps coming out from the family room. This is the two-car garage where it has it's pointed on the side of the house. So the driveway is a circular driveway, and then you go around to the two-car garage. Then this is another picture of the rear of the house. And then this here shows some pictures of the front of the house here. This is some finished pictures. Showing it's a large structure. You see it's very large, 35 feet in height. It has brick on the front of the house. It has those three-part paddle windows in here with the arch window in the front. This is very nice brickwork. And then you see over here it has the circular driveway with the steps going up to the front entrance. So this is really like I call it a showcase of the house, so you can really get an idea of from start to finish of the construction.
Wow. Yeah, super exciting. Even just looking in that, I can't imagine being the homeowner and knowing that's my house being built.
Yes.
Somebody living there. One thought, the hot water heater you showed before, the electric, what I had to replace one about 8 years ago. About 8 years ago in the house that I was in before the one I just sold. And what a difference. That takes up so much less space, like literally this big on the wall. And that's what you showed there. But it's on demand. So when you turn the water on, that's when it heats the water and it goes through the heater. It worked great. The only negative I would say is that if you had a large tub that you're trying to fill up or a jacuzzi, which I had in that house, sometimes you couldn't heat it up fast enough, because you're moving a lot of water and trying to make that water hot. But your dishwasher, your washer, you go over to the sink and turn it on in 4 seconds, bam, it's up there, like over 100 degrees.
Yes. A lot of people like them. I like the idea that is really high efficiency, and this is
saves money too. Saves money on if you have a gas heater or even if you have electric one. It's that is electric, but so much smaller and gets the job done. Big house too.
Yes.
What about bathroom trends? We have like a minute or two left. Any trends that stand out for you in bathrooms where people are doing?
I think the bathrooms are about the same these days. A lot of people, they usually, for this kind of size project, we might want a whirlpool bathtub.
Okay.
It might not be 2'6" by 5 foot. It might be slightly larger. And the shower stall, a lot of times people like a larger than 3x3 shower stall in this type of job. Maybe you come out to 3 foot by 5 foot. It'll be a larger shower stall. Also, a lot of people like an enclosed toilet room. If there's room, we could put a partition around the toilet, sort of separate it so it's like its own little room within the master bath. And that's another item that is typical of what we're doing today with the design. And I think this bathroom, as you see, is very nice tile. This all ceramic tile. It is done very nice.
Very
has all stone tops and everything.
Yeah.
So this is good.
Excellent. Just excellent work. Like just looking at all of this. Again, just looking at it is exciting.
I think that now this was more residential projects. I think these are some projects. Now this project on the top this project was very good. I have a lot of phone calls on this design. They were all calling for me, and I've been making more new ones in the area that look similar to this. This design is really very nice. They like this. This is another one that's a completely gutted out and like brand new. This came out very nice with a white brick. It's like a stone brick on this house. This came out very good. And this also has the new insert fireplace. Instead of the old chimney, all they do is have a direct vent in here. And on this one, they built like this little building just extending out from the wall. And so this is the new technology that's going on with the fireplace also.
Where does it vent?
It vents right in the middle. You see, there's like this little square vent right in the middle. The hot air will vent right out of there. And that's the new technology. So no more chimneys or anything. And usually also the mechanical system and the electric heater do not require any chimney anymore. So that the whole thing with the chimneys is usually over with unless you really want some kind of decorative wood fireplace.
Right.
And these are some more basic houses. I'm showing a variety of them. These are in different zones also. They're in different zones. And I'll just give a quick sampling of some houses. And this is another one which is typical of this is based off this first one.
Yeah.
Design. And this is a more recent one. This is another house that I have designed in a similar, it looks like a similar design. So this is another one in the area here.
I personally love that style of house, those two.
Yes.
What style is that? What do you call that?
This is really traditional. It's contemporary traditional style house.
Okay.
And this is this neighborhood is very similar to like Levittown, where it has a lot of Cape Cods. So this is really like a 2-story conversion of that kind of house. So this is the style that I put on this particular house, and a lot of people like it. It looks pretty good.
It kind of drives me crazy. We're just about out of time here, but it drives me crazy when I pass by a house. Maybe it was built, I don't know, call it 30 years ago, 40, whatever. And it's just flat. There's no dimension to it. It's flat. And my last house was kind of like that, although there was a portico over the porch. It didn't even have shutters on it. And I know that, I see some of your designs doesn't have a shutter. I put them on there just to give it some depth because it was just flat and boring.
Yes. Especially on this first house that everyone liked. You see, I did a lot of setbacks here with the front entrance coming out of the front of the house. Then this pent of the roof comes around and wraps around here. Setbacks like 4 feet on the side.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like this. There's a lot of shade and shadow on here.
Yeah.
This pitch of a roof we did over the window.
Because it gives you visual interest, and you don't need shutters because there's a lot of things going on, but sometimes you just need something to kick it up. John, fascinating pictures.
Yes.
I'm glad we did this, and even looking at the 3D rendering gives a better idea of how you do what you do. I want to tell everybody, johnriggio.com, RIGGIO.com. You're looking for a change to what you have, maybe a renovation or new construction, or even when it comes to business or commercial construction, reach out to John. He's been around. He knows his thing, and he's also a great tennis player too. I just happen to know that.
Yes,
John,
thank you.
Thank you very much for being here, John. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was good talking to you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And so many of us are standing strong and firm while that world is shaking, right? Susan Lenning here, our inspirational coach, and so much more. She's here today, of course, to talk about the Whole Health Way, her company or business, and of course, how she can help you. And in her coaching, I know we're going to get into the dark nights and so much more. So welcome back today.
Oh, thank you so much, Jill. It's just a privilege to be in this time and space with all of you, and to see what we can do to raise your vibration, give you some hope and some tools, opportunities to really see how you can look within and grow from that.
Great. Well, it's exciting to have you here. And let's just remind everyone of your website, how to contact you. And I know we're going to have a great conversation today. The past few weeks, we've been on with clients of hers who rave about the work she does. And I could vouch for that. I've seen it firsthand. And I think you guys will have a better understanding of who she is and how she can help you during the show. So go ahead. How do we reach out to you, sweetheart?
Oh, yes. And the name of my website is called thewholehealthway.com. And if you go on thewholehealthway.com/gift, you'll be directed to an area of a webinar that I did a couple years ago. And I've refined my skills, or maybe lack of them since then, but I just started out doing what I could. I knew that I had to get this message out there, and that my message and my story is important because everybody else's message and story is important. So if they saw that I just was doing this without being perfect, and that's what holds us all back, we're scared that we're going to look stupid. But what are people going to think? And oh my gosh, she is whacked. Well, whatever. So
Wow.
I just stood out there and did what I wanted to do. It wasn't perfect. It just wasn't. And, it's over an hour long, but you can kind of see how I started out there. And it's a result of really understanding my why. And I went through the dark night to get here.
Wow.
And this is what's so beautiful. All of us are going to have this dark night. We maybe already have. We might be going through it right now, or it's going to be there. It's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
And so we want to be like this palm tree behind me here. And so those waves are rushing and rushing, and the winds can get high. But how can you stand firm in your world when all these conditions and circumstances are wanting to push you down so you don't get back up again, take away your light? So, and I just really believe that we're so much more powerful, and we contain so much more potential than any circumstance, condition. That's not for us. What's in us is so much more powerful than any of these conditions. High gas prices, the war in Ukraine, out of toilet paper, whatever it is, out of conditioner, whatever it is, we're so much more than that. We don't want to use our beautiful energy and life to be distracted. So, yeah, so this can really be your time to prioritize and up-level your wellness practice. Use this as a beautiful opportunity. Well, you can't do this, you can't do that. Oh, but what can you do? What can you do with this time? And so you can upgrade your relationship tools and work-life harmony, all those things. So we know that COVID-19 causes extra stress.
Oh, yeah.
And we would all love support and coaching around that to navigate all the changes in our lives. I've talked before how we have the opportunity, if we want to get better at singing, we'll hire a singing coach. If we want to get better at speech or speaking, we'll hire somebody who has experience in that and who can help us to grow from where we're at to where we love to be, to have that confidence. And I'm just saying right here and now, folks, everybody, you can just do this right now from right where you're at. Because,
wow,
like I said, the dark night is inevitable. The dark night births the next larger version of you. And how you navigate
beautiful.
the dark night is essential on your evolution. It's all up to you. Nobody else can do this.
Yeah.
So you can't have like any spiritual bypasses or anything like that. You can't take any detours from this. You got to face it. You got to look it straight in the heart of it, and you've got to deal with it. Otherwise, nothing else, your whole life, you'll just be stuffing this stuff down all your life. And yeah, it ain't pretty. So, a lot of us have had, or you can think about what your dark night is. But, I have a personal story, but, I'd have to say the biggest one for me that blocked me was being betrayed. And there's kind of this really sick psychological bond with being this betrayal bond too. It is just wrong. And so if your thoughts aren't in alignment with what you would love for yourself, you're going to be subject to whatever passes you by. You're going to want the easy way out. But this is hard work. You've got to know who you are and realize how powerful you are. So, I've been betrayed. I've had the diagnosis. I've had all of these things and all together. So when I moved to Iowa from Minnesota, I moved to Oskaloosa, Iowa. And that's where I met my second husband. And I was in this play that I was cast. I took my kids to audition for the play Annie. My daughter was 9 and she had red hair. I thought she's perfect. But they ended up having me go up and sing and audition. And then I ended up getting the role of Grace. And I love that.
Wow.
And so, but while I was doing that, I was delivering papers. I was going to Bible college and had started my LPN training. And so acting and nursing and all of these things and raising children.
Yeah.
And I'm a Lunning.
Yeah, you're right.
My last name is an action. It's a verb.
Yeah.
So, and I've had a lot of success. Oh, by golly, have I had success. Oh, planes, trains, automobiles, whatever it is, the best clothes, the best houses, the best vacation cars. I've had it all. I've earned it all. And so once the betrayal happened, then that went away because I had to make a choice. If I didn't love what we were doing to create that kind of, how shall I say, wealth. It wasn't in alignment with my core values and what I wanted to do. It was all about what he wanted to do. But up until I understood that I have a dream and I want to follow my dream, instead of always helping everybody else create their dream, I didn't think I was worthy enough to have what I wanted. And I think that happens with a lot of us. We don't think we can cut the mustard. So we just help everybody else get to their dream. And I'm saying that because there may be somebody out there like that. So, and I'm just going to hit a few points on this. And, please stop me if you have a question about something.
Sure, absolutely. And of course, and if anyone does have any questions and wants to call in, they're more than welcome to as well. 631-317-1291, 631-317-1291. Feel free to call with any questions. We're going to open the lines. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And so, like I've said a couple of times, the dark night is inevitable. the dark night experience is inevitable for each of us. And it doesn't exclude anybody. It's each of us. This is our opportunity, our curriculum, so that we can evolve. So when the dark night comes, so there's this book by The Dark Night of the Soul. By St. John of the Cross.
Okay.
And he writes, when the dark night comes upon you, not if it comes.
When.
So, and even Jesus talked about whoever builds their house on the sands of circumstance, and said, when the wind and waves come, he didn't say if the winds and wave come. So what really happens then is there's the opportunity of how this dark night can birth this larger version of you. So the dark night of the soul is a time when something greater is seeking to emerge us. And so we've always heard, successful people are willing to be uncomfortable in the interest of growth, blah, 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 blah. We hear all these things, but, we don't really think that, a lot of us aren't willing to be uncomfortable.
No.
I'll have this, please, but I'm not going to have any discomfort with this. I want this, but I'm not going to become that. I'm not going to make any sacrifices. I want that. I want that. I want that. And that's you can certainly have that, but there's things that you get to come from and learn to get those, because there's things that are down deep in your dynamic natural authenticity, your DNA, that need to be dealt with in order for that to evolve, so your energy can be healthy in all of the chakras and the right colors. And I got a chart about that too. So the dark night of the soul is, again, it's when something greater is coming to seek from you. That's why you feel this pull, this freer, fuller, more expanded version of yourself. Okay, you're being pulled by that, but you're also being pulled by this, oh, no, don't do that now. Oh, well, just distract you from it, but that's your fear.
Yeah.
That is your fear. And those are what we call paradigms. And the definition of a paradigm is your self-limiting beliefs that you have in your mind about yourself and your world.
Yeah.
And so your paradigms are going to stop you every time. You're going to feel butterflies in your stomach. You're scared. And then I just say, well, just do the Nike thing and just do it.
Yeah.
When my little boy was younger, he would come up to me and he would ask me something. And then he'd tell it to me. And then he says, oh, just say yes. Oh, just say yes. Okay. And really, it is that simple.
Yeah.
He provided the solution for me to help him with his problem. All I had to do is say yes.
Yes.
And so the dark moment is required in the evolution of our own soul. And it's so important. We came here to evolve. So what's coming to get you is you. And it's this higher expression, experience of you, more capacity in you, more understanding of yourself, and more connection to that in you that is infinite. That's why Reiki has served me so well. So I can connect with my higher self and my spiritual being to help me on this human experience that I'm having. And we have access to that 24/7. So you are more than this condition, and you are greater than this circumstance. So now, how we navigate the dark night is essential to our evolution. And that's kind of what I do. I'm a coach. I help you to navigate, and I support you when all of these things are coming to pass. I love you, and I believe in you, and I support you, and I give you the tools to help you to navigate. I mean, this is so amazing. I've done it. I'm doing it, and it's just because I did it. So I'm just sharing this.
And that it's possible. Any one of you out there, anyone listening can make it happen. You can do it. You're good enough. You can do it. And sometimes you need a little nudge, you need a little help, and that's okay. We all have been there and we've all needed help. We all have been up and down, but especially when you have that self-confidence and that drive, and you're working with someone who's been through her own ups and downs, we've all had. She's just here sharing her own experience. Hold on, we have a call coming as I light up. Hello, welcome to the show. You're live on the line. Who's this?
Hi, my name is Catherine.
Hi, Catherine. Please ask any questions you may have for Susan.
Yeah, sure. So I know, Susan, you have a program that's like a 4-week program. I wanted to know if I was to be interested, what type of commitment is needed from me to start the program?
Oh, what a beautiful question. And your name is Catherine?
Yes.
Okay, that's my mother's middle name. So, yes. And so the commitment would be for you to understand that this is your time. Okay. And just be willing. Just be willing. No more waiting. No more putting it off. No more putting yourself on the back burner. So, an hour a week for 4 weeks.
Okay. All right. That sounds pretty easy. It don't sound like too much.
Right. And so that would be the instruction and the guidance and the support with the material. Okay. And so, you'll just do a Zoom with me for an hour or so, and then we just unpack this. And so we can get you from where you are in the dark night of the soul, or, wherever you're at, that we can get you on your hero's journey of becoming what you're supposed to be. Just 4 weeks, very, it's to the point.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Susan.
And Catherine, can I just ask you a quick question? Is there anything in particular that you need to work on that you wanted to address with Susan? Is there something in your life that you're going through that you want to better or empower yourself with that she can give you a quick word of advice for now?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, ever since the pandemic really started, a lot of things shut down, and with everything that shut down, a lot of people were sitting down a lot of jobs were shut down. I started feeling less of a person in a way a little bit because I wasn't doing as much. I was gaining weight and stuff. So I am working on myself, working on loving my life a little bit more now. Yes, we are 2 years into the pandemic now, but I want to just do something different for once and not go back to the same routine I had before the pandemic. I want to actually enjoy my life a little bit more. So I wanted to know, will she be able to help me with that if I do the classes with her for the 4 weeks?
Oh, absolutely. And I have a lot of opportunities. I have a lot of programs. And, but this is a great way to get started. And just to always remember, Catherine, that, you are a human being, not a human doing. And the shift that our world is going through right now is that we're really understanding that the facts, what's in our bank account, and all these facts in our lives are not going to determine our worth and what we can and cannot do. And so you can certainly, yes, and that's what you have, that power in you. You've got a dream in there. I've got this pin on. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I was certified as a life mastery consultant with the Brave Thinking Institute. And I wear this pin to remind myself of the challenge, the opportunity, my dream to ignite the fire of the dream in your belly. It's in there. It's in there.
Yeah.
And
all right.
support you. And so you can just go to my website, and it says on there, free 60-minute call, and just set your appointment, and we'll spend an hour talking about you, where you are, and where you'd love to be, and what the next steps are.
Okay, it sounds pretty good. Thank you, Susan.
Oh, you're so welcome.
It's giving me, like, you're having me look into it a little bit more. Like, you only got one life to live, so why not live it?
Exactly. You got this, honey. Yeah, it's so true. You're right. Well, thank you. And if you want to reach out to her, thewholehealthway.com. Is that okay to give out the website?
Yes, absolutely. And schedule your consultation, and then there'll be a short questionnaire that I'd love for you to fill out, and that helps direct things to really help me understand where you are.
Okay, thank you so much. I will check it out. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, sweetheart. Thank you for the call. Wow. 631-317-1291. Thank you for taking the time to answer her question. Anyone else has any more, please feel free to call. In the meantime, let's get back to Susan Lenning here. And I know she was talking about the dark night and all, and I forgot exactly where we left off, but that was a great call. So thank you, Catherine.
Oh, yes, that was beautiful. And so before I do any coaching, before I do a healing session, whatever I do, before I do it, I shield myself, and I meditate, and I pray that I can be a blessing, that I am at the vibration that reaches somebody that's hurting right now, and reach out and have them feel confident enough to ask, say, hey, I need help. I need some support.
Yeah.
Can you help me?
Yeah.
I can help you help yourself. I don't do it for you. I do it with you. And that's what's important. We're transitioning and shifting from this fix it, mentality to this blossoming and unfolding and letting things flow, and not trying to control things. Well, we can control what we can control, but that's where our mental just goes crazy when we try to control something and it doesn't happen the way that we want it to, and that it's just a mess. And it's just, and then we have these tools that we can really get this gift. So and it's so important. How we navigate this dark night is essential to how we evolve. And so how we navigate this terrain, both with the capacities that we've developed and those that we are seeking to be developed. It ain't over yet.
Yeah.
You don't look at what you've done up until now as it. This is not the top of Maslow's hierarchy. But it's essential to know that you can continue to evolve greater possibilities of self and soul. And I just had this vision of when I was watching the Olympics, watching these men and women, and see, that's all they've done is they've prepared for that moment, for whatever that moment brings them. But they aren't okay with just saying, oh, I got that gold, I'm done. No, it's that insatiable thirst to grow and see, how much more can I do? That's how we push our boundaries, push our limits, in our thoughts. And it's all about our thoughts and what we think about ourselves. So we can allow, this dark night experience to shake us, or to shape us. Our thoughts are moldable or malleable or malleable, or whatever that is, to our world. What we're thinking about shapes our world. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we can either get bitter or angry, or become the victim to the condition, Okay,
Yeah.
because I certainly had a song to sing, the victim song. I was good at singing it. I sang it wherever I could because I wanted, it was a kind of a sick attention.
Yeah.
Because, oh, that's terrible that happened to you. Oh, you shouldn't have had to go through that. Oh, you don't deserve that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That just kind of gives you a little bit more strength, to at least know that. But then again, you look down to it. Oh, you shouldn't have had to go through that. Well, that's what subtracts you from the whole energy of having this evolvement. So, so we can either get bitter, angry, or become the victim to the condition, in which case that experience will shake us. That'll shake your ground. You want to be angry and bitter? Oh, yeah, it ain't going to serve you. Listen to me. I am educated. Or we can use those very same energies as an evolutionary driver to take us to the whole next dimension of possibilities of ourselves and allow the experience to shape us. So how are we doing on time here? Maybe I can kind of bring this in for a landing.
Sure.
For us.
You're so
Okay.
cute. We're good. We got a few minutes.
You got a few minutes?
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
So just know that those who navigate this terrain well, they say, this is what they all say. Well, it was the last thing I wanted and the best thing that ever happened to me. So when people are losing their jobs, that's the last thing they wanted, but they found in this internal growth and going within that it was the best thing that happened to them because it gave that the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so just some tools, some quick tools here for navigating your dark night. Dare the dark night. The first step to managing the dark is to stare it in the face. Dare the dark. You can't deny it. You can't do a spiritual bypass, like I said. It may be scary and difficult. It shakes your foundation, your sense of security, your predictability, and certainly your comfort. But you can't do a detour or a spiritual bypass. Know that you are more than that. Whatever is happening, you are more than that. Don't let that define you. You are more than anything that can come at you. You are more than your circumstance or your experience. Know that with which is inside you is greater than anything outside of you. And really, you just can't really build this muscle of knowing without facing some things that you may not have wanted to face. Or that seem big and scary along.
Very true. Very true.
So you can just get the gift out of all this. Life is such an exquisite, loving guide to this journey of becoming who you're capable of becoming. This is your journey. It's your experience. And so every one of us is loved enough to be given moments that we never would have wanted. But there is absolutely a buried gift inside that experience that can open us up to possibilities and potentials of self and soul that were always there. That's where I help you. We go down and we dig and we dig.
Perfect.
So, and then the life work, dare the dark. Don't shy away from it. Know that you're more than that. Create an affirmation for yourself that reminds you that which is inside of you is greater than anything outside of you. And get the gift. Get the gift.
Yay!
Get the gift. So you may not know what the gift is right now, girlfriends, but decide you're going to get the gift.
Yeah.
When you're digging for gold, you're digging for gold. You've decided, you're taking the actions, and you're digging for gold. You decided that you're going to get that. Whatever you set your mind to, you know you can do it.
You could do it. You could do it.
This is the same thing with your life. Decide to get the gift at whatever the dark night is throwing you.
I love that.
So, and here's something just to end with. Say to yourself, I refuse to have this experience without getting the gift that it came to give me. And I found my gifts in all of the betrayals and all of the diagnosis, all of my health diagnosis, everything. I found the gift because now I see how I'm able to serve so many people as a result of going through that and living through that and understanding how to create a life I love living.
Beautifully said. You're amazing. Love you. I love the ocean, watching the waves behind you as well today. Inspiring. Thank you, Catherine, for the call. Thank you for being here, Susan Lunning. And remind us how we can reach out to you, please.
Oh, yes, I'd love for you to go to thewholehealthway.com. And you can go to thewholehealthway.com/, and you can see some of the things that I've accomplished. You can see the success stories of the other people that have been interviewed on this very show, sharing in a very comfortable conversation their journey of coaching and understanding their dark night of the soul. And they are living the dreams and the life that they love. They really are. And it's fun, you guys. I have a life mastery group on Tuesday nights. Oh my gosh, we have so much fun. It ought to be illegal to have as much fun as we have.
I love it. Well, thank you, Susan. Really, it's always a pleasure having you here and looking forward to the next time we meet. Have a great day. And thank you for inspiring so many of us. Bye-bye, honey.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
You might have heard a lot about energy healing, spiritual healing. We're going to go layers deeper into that. And we've got a modern day mystic joining us. I've heard the term before. I'm going to learn more, just like all of us are. Peter Schenk is back on the program. Hey, Peter, how you doing?
Steve, I'm doing amazing. Thank you. So typically when I do a show, I like to do a water blessing right out of the gate. And what it does is it kind of sets the mood and the tone for the show to ensue. So with that said, all the listeners, all you got to do is just grab a glass of water. They can be bottled water, or in your case, seltzer water.
I got seltzer water today.
And what I'd like you to do is just simply raise your left hand over that glass of water, and while it's on the table in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Left hand is for receiving. And in a second, what you'll start to feel is an energy move down through your hand into the water. That can come in the form of a straight up lightning bolt, pin pricklies, heat, anything. Once you start to feel that, you'll want to put your attention on the water. Okay, so energy that is in physical form or non-physical form will do absolutely anything for you as long as you acknowledge its existence. So once you start to feel that energy flow out loud, put your attention on the water and repeat these 8 sacred words. I honor the space in which you exist.
I honor the space in which you exist.
Awesome. And what you'll feel is that energy flow start to increase through your hand into the water.
I feel my hand getting hotter.
Oh, absolutely. So give it about 5-10 seconds, and then go ahead and taste the water. And what you'll notice is it's smoother, it's silkier. And once you consume it, then you'll start to feel that energy moving through your body. And that's where the magic starts to happen.
Interesting. Okay. So you said before we even went on that if I use seltzer water, it's going to be flatter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's in my head, but this is a fresh can, and now it feels flatter.
Of course.
It's wild. You know, what you just did backs up what I've been learning in my journey over, the past year, but most recently, how you can transfer energy to anything. It could be a piece of paper. It could be a card with an intent that you read every single day, call it Reiki on that card, whatever.
So to be clear, you're actually not transferring energy because you are that energy, right? So science has coined a term, the quantum realm, and it's a buzzword today, quantum this, quantum that, but its core. And my engineering for the first half of my life was all, my learning was all analytical, engineering, computer software, all of that. And after my wake up experience, the metaphysical side started to grow. And as it was growing, I needed to understand quantum mechanics, right? And there's books and volumes about what it is. And we're not going to go into that because honestly, it's pretty boring. But if you have a really small fundamental understanding that everything is energy and that energy is all interconnected, this interconnectedness is what science coins the quantum realm. It is a place that has no beginning and no end. Space, time, and distance do not exist. So in essence, where you put your consciousness, you can also set your intention, right? So you can exist nowhere or you can exist everywhere simultaneously. So with your comment about directing energy, you're not actually directing energy. You're just putting your form there instantly. Pretty cool, huh?
It is, but I'm trying to get, and I'm the furthest thing. I'm a tech geek, yes, but I'm not a science guy. So how do we send that energy from us, hand, to the can or glass?
Intention.
And was energy transferred from you or I, or was it always there? That's the part I'm trying to get.
Well, that's $1,000 question, right? So look at it a different vantage point. If you could rate the health of a human body on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being the Christ consciousness, the perfect human form, but a normal human maybe vibrates around an 8. But a person that has cancer maybe vibrates a 4 or 5, right? And your objective is to remove that cancer from that person via healing. So they go to bed and they wake up and the cancer's gone. Now they're vibrating at a 7 or an 8. So the question then becomes, did the cancer ever exist or did you truly get rid of it? So there's these conundrums, it's like opening up a door, it leads to 3 more. In my world, that's irrelevant. It's just the end goal that matters.
Interesting. And they say that we all have the power to heal ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's where you put that energy and your intent and how you work with it.
Well, a child, an infant, sees the world as magic up until maybe 8 or 10 months, right? And then conditioning starts. We start teaching them, they start learning, and they kind of lose that magic. And then as adults, obviously, we don't have it anymore. But if you have the intent to rediscover that magic, you can then do amazing things. And ultimately, this is all about spreading more love and light in the world and raising the vibration of the planet and everyone that's inhabiting it. Yeah.
So your website is moderndaymystic.com, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Interesting. And what is a mystic? How do you determine how do you define a mystic?
It was really interesting. So modern day mystic was born back in the signature was born back in 2011. And at the time, I had several different software products on the market, and each one had its own website, had its own store. And it was really, really hard to kind of keep everything together. So I went to a guy out in Chicago who later became a photographer for all of the products that we produced. And I asked him, I said, he was a web developer. And I said, I want you to bring all of everything I've created under one house. And I don't have a name for it. So he's like, well, how about modern day mystic? And it took me back, and the websites were available, and I needed a day to think about it. So I thought about it, and everything that I do represents past, present, and future. Okay. The past being ancient knowledge, lost knowledge, brought together in the now, the present, with state-of-the-art fabrication, metallurgy processes, state-of-the-art digital software, and so forth, all in a futuristic design. So that's where the modern part came in. Day just kind of sounded cool, but the mystical part is everything I do has a mystic allure about it. You know, all the teachings that we're putting out, all of the products that, you know, the spiritual technology, that's all next generation, it all is very mystical in the way it's presented. Okay, so this is a forthcoming product called the HFA Palladium, and this stands for Harmonic Field Amplifier Palladium. Okay, I'm not going to get too deep into this one, but I just want to kind of show it. This product is mystical on so many levels, and I don't want to go into too much about this one right now, but it's a perfect representation of past, present, and future, all in a product that will help shift you ultimately from a life stuck in fear into a loving world. And the other part of it is, you know, a lot of times in life we're motivated and passionate. And I love to use the gym as an example, right? Come January 1st, everyone's motivated and passionate to go to the gym. So what do? They buy a year membership. And what happens on March 1st? Or they buy gym equipment. Well, the year membership that you bought, that you're going to be paying for another 10 months, you're not motivated to go anymore. The piece of gym equipment that you bought just became the most expensive, you know, put your coat on it or throw your clothes on it to do the wash you've ever bought. But if you are driven, Steve, to see something through to completion, okay, when you are driven, you are unstoppable. And that's an energy that you can't get anywhere. It only comes from the inside. So for instance, with the HFA Palladium and some of the other products that we've created over the years, my mindset has always been that if the universe wants me to produce this product and get it out into the world, I have to find that energy that's inside to be driven. If I'm motivated or passionate about it, it's just not going to happen.
So what's the difference between passion and motivation when we talk about energy?
So passion, I have a passion for Italian food, right? I love to eat it. Okay. My motivation is to go to my favorite Italian spot and eat it. So when it comes to energy work, most people in the world like to coin themselves that are in the, you know, the spiritual and holistic as something, perhaps maybe a Reiki master or an energy healer.
Yep.
They're passionate and they're motivated to do that. And, you know, they're great at what they do. When I started this journey, I had a conversation with the universe, and I basically said, I am not going to follow anybody in the world. I'm not going to understand how they do things. Everything that I have created, pushed out into the world, has been carved through solid rock. Everything is new, it's fresh, and it's radically advanced in terms of healing. And you have to be driven to achieve that. So the motivation and the passion comes when you label yourself as something. But because I know intuitively, as you are and everyone is, that we are unlimited beings, how can we not be? We're all part of that divine spark that, is all of creation. To limit yourself as one thing. So when I'm doing an energy session with a person and we come across a roadblock, whatever it is, a piece of energy that's got to go, maybe causing something in their past, you need to be driven to get rid of it. But more importantly, because you have a fundamental knowledge that you are unlimited, you can download that piece of the Reiki, or you can download instantly on the fly in real time and allow that healing to ensue.
And when you say that, do you mean, Peter, that it's you allowing that energy to get in and maybe get rid of the replace the bad energy? Or are we talking about the person that's accepting it and has the challenges that needs to change?
So this is a rabbit hole discussion, but I'll give you the basics. Before any of the great work can be done, there's always something like a soul contract, where the time and the place of the great work has to be done. So your embodiment has agreed before you took form for me to allow to be part of your experience to do that. And it's never me actually doing the work. It's great energy healers that are alive today and in the past. They are basically just the conduits by which the great work is done through them.
So when somebody comes before you and they say, yeah, I want to, either they recognize that they have issues from the past and they need to heal from them, or they just want to move life forward, maybe get rid of anxiety, whatever they're looking for, you direct them to the right modality, I would assume.
Great question. So everyone is different. I've performed a lot of sessions over the last 20 years, and there's never two that are the same. But there are three types of people that typically come to me. The first is someone that knows exactly what they want to do. And once it's presented, the story actually changes, and that allows for the real work to begin. The second type of person is someone that just feels like they need to connect for some reason, and then the great work will ensue. And the third type is just people that just need something. They don't know what, they just need something. And then of course, once the story starts to unfold, then the work begins.
So what type of modalities do you offer? We talked about Reiki. Do you do Reiki?
So there's 5 or 6 different types of sessions on the website. The first are just energetic sessions. People typically buy time. We set that time up. And then, I kind of like to give a background before answering the question, obviously. So as you move through your reality, and you're never given the exact information or the plans for a product, right? You have to work towards that. So on the energy session side, when I first started doing energy sessions, we offered one type. It was one type fits all. Everybody comes in, and that's where those kind of 3 layers would filter in. So after years and years of doing them, what you have done is you have proven to the universe that you are resourceful. You're not just a person that says they're going to do something. You're a person that says they're going to do something, and then you follow through with it, hence the driven part. So after a decade of doing energy sessions, I was given access to what we call a person's core probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And the core is your soul. It's the center of your consciousness. It's the center of your being. And what I was given was a much deeper energetic level to people. So what came from that? Well, we spawned 3 sessions. The first one is a core cleanse. We spin your core. It creates carrier waves. It creates a massive energetic field within the body, and it pushes out. And as it pushes out, it cleans everything on the way out. That spawned a chakra core. right? So I've been working on chakras for years, cleaning them. And 15 years ago when we started, it was an 8-day process, an hour a day, all the way from the crown down to the base. And what we found from that was, because we were draining the good and the bad energy, by the time we had drained the base, you didn't feel human anymore, but yet you had to wait 24 hours before we came back in and filled them up simultaneously. So again, as that was refined over time, I showed the universe, yes, we can do this. So the chakra core was born. And that basically, in that 1-hour session, we clean all your chakras and then we simultaneously fill them back up. And then the receiving core was born. And this one was very personal to me. So a couple of years back, I wanted to, I had heard stories about people not being able to receive because they've given everything to themselves. So I sent an email out to the tribe saying, hey, I've got this new energetic session and I want to test it on people. Why should I test it on you? My inbox filled up. And what I learned from those emails was that people had given everything of themselves and they weren't order. They couldn't receive anything. And, you've heard the term, the in and the out breath. But in order to receive, you have to give. And in order to give, you have to receive. So in that particular session, we go in, and again, there's 3 carryways, and we reprogram the subconscious mind for giving and receiving and giving. And what that does is it opens up all kinds of doors and gets rid of the blockages.
Interesting. So if somebody's going to receive, let's say, because there's so many people out there that have given so much of themselves and don't take any time for self-care. If somebody's in that situation where they've given so much, are they able to receive clean energy, better energy? Can they be healed?
So typically, no, they can't.
Wow.
But they can't be healed. Typically, it goes back to early childhood where there's feelings of guilt,
yep.
Material consumption in the Western world, people with different philosophies, it's bad. So, when a young mind is basically programmed or experiences something over the course of their life, it creates a hardening of this energy. And over time, that wreaks havoc on the body, mind, and spirit. And as you age, that can translate into the human plane as a whole host of human ailments. You're bipolar. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So receiving and giving is as important as breathing.
So if somebody reaches out to you on your website, moderndaymystic.com, how does the process begin? Do they tell you what they're looking for? Do they tell you their situation and then you kind of direct them?
So I've spent a lot of time and resources on the website and have constantly updated it over the years. And one thing I really pride myself on is descriptions that are, tell exactly what the product or the service is and what you're going to get. And people, sure, they can contact me through the website, and sometimes I have a phone call with them. I'm very close to my customer base and I love talking to people. So typically before someone purchases a session, if they're not sure, they just call the number. I don't have an answering service. I love to talk to people. I never want to put a layer, as much as I can, between myself and that customer spending, money on a service that they'll receive. Yeah.
So when that takes place, they reach out to you. Are there people that can't be healed?
No. Everyone can be healed. And that's a great question, by the way. So there are amazing products in the world, energetic products that just simply don't work for people, but they work for everybody else. Why is that? In my experience, it's always about that person's trajectory. Okay. So without getting into past life regression and where you are, basically, if you have to have an experience in life for your own DNA, and you want to purchase something that's going to alter that experience, the universe negates it instantly. Now,
give me that again, because that seems pretty powerful and profound what you just said.
Okay. So as a human, you're your life, you don't have to subscribe to it. It's just an opinion. Your life is scripted. Every action, every thought you signed up for. Okay. So now you're going to have some experience, whether it's small or large. Okay. It's coming down your data stream. And you want to purchase an energetic product that does something to you. Okay. Maybe for healing. And all of a sudden you purchase that product will be overwritten by the universe because you have to have your experience on your trajectory. So it simply will not work on you.
So let's say you've had experience in your childhood and you figured it out and you need to heal from it. It would work in that situation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Man, we go deep here today. There's a lot going on.
Steve, we're only scratching the surface.
I had that feeling too. Yeah. Wow. Do you do a discovery call? Like somebody talks to you, they reach out to you so that you can kind of direct them in the right service, the right product?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's important to remember that when you come across something that's unique, and you get very excited, you're going to want to start spending money. But it's more important to sit back and breathe and assess, because in life, you never pick the product. The product always picks you. Okay. And never think with your mind, because that implies logic, and never use your heart because that implies emotion. You go with your gut, and that gut residency is communicating with that product that ensues you. Everything I create has consciousness. Okay, that's a bold statement. And that consciousness is derived from the universe, which is childlike energy. It only wants to make you happy. It wants to have fun. So in the case of, something like the HFA Sirius, and again, I'm not going to get into this product has its own unique properties. And what I do is I inspire, I teach people to start that dialogue with the product, because there's consciousness. And what you feel coming back to you in the beginning is waves of vibration, right? And it doesn't matter what language or however you think, those waves of vibration very, very quickly turn into human language. At that point, it's game on. Then the product really starts to light up and the magic really ensues.
Next time we get together, could we go a little deeper into some of those products? Because I find that fascinating. I'm a gadget guy, a tech guy, curious how they work in terms of helping people heal. What are the 8 words that we started out with the intent for blessing the water again?
I honor the space in which you exist.
Got to remember that. And how often would you suggest even blessing water with those words?
Blessing water is amazing. You can bless anything, but water, since the body's made up of some huge percentage of water,
like 98.
Bless something, and you bless something externally and it goes in, then it starts to move. People used to hold hands and say grace, right, around the table. Mm-hmm. Why did we do that? Well, Christianity would teach you one thing, but actually it was to raise the vibration of the food. The food would actually taste better, right? So I developed software technology that allows you, and I'll get into this on another call, but it allows you to impress the light frequencies of intention into water anywhere in existence, past, present, or future, or a humidity bubble around you. This stuff gets really, really amazing once you start to enter into the products and services that we created. But blessing water as many times as you want.
Not going to hurt you, and it's just going to basically good energy, right?
It's amazing energy, yeah.
Well, you've got that. That's Peter Schenk. ModernDayMystic.com. Go to the website. There's so much information. There's so much insight. Well worth a visit, and also worth a phone call if you're looking to heal from something, looking to move your life forward. Great talking with you today, Peter.
Thank you, Steve. It's been awesome.
Yeah, fascinating. And we'll catch up again. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back to the show. We are joined here once again by Kat Schwartz, and she is a holistic healer, also founder of her own company, Compassionate Healing Services, and so much more from Medford, New Jersey. Welcome, Kat, back. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Jill. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much. Good to see you again. For those new listeners out there, and for the old ones as well, let's remind everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'd happy to. My name is Kat Schwartz. I am a former physical therapist, a current holistic healer, the CEO and founder of Compassionate Healing Services, which is both my business and my mission. And I would say my mission overarching is suicide prevention, but really making the healing tools that helped me come out of my own suicidal crisis and deal with my mental health in a much more effective way. Become much more accessible to the world at large, because currently it is a privilege to heal. And that's something we're not going to focus on as much this episode, but I definitely want to touch on next episode.
Now, yeah, we talked a lot last time, and you mentioned how some people might think it's a little woo-woo type sounding, like, right? Energy, healing, spirit, but I don't feel that way. But just to comment on that, if you don't mind just sharing with our listeners a little bit.
Oh, please. And I would have counted myself amongst them for 18 solid years. So I will talk about that more at the end, about how I challenged my own atheism. But yeah, so exactly. The first conversation we had, if you go back to it, a lot of what I believe in very strongly now, which is to say Reiki energy healing, which is to say the healing capacity and capabilities of crystals, of essential oils, of deep breathing techniques, of meditation, of yoga, right? Yoga being huge. Yoga meaning union, right? Union of mind, body, and spirit. And that takes space. And that's something that's not built into our culture now. We have the opportunity to be busy at all times. And that has its pitfalls, certainly. And certainly in understanding ourselves, the internal landscape, because that does require a level of solitude, right? A level of being able to go within. So it was really in embracing what I had previously considered to be woo, to be fringe, to be crazy even, that I finally found some real mental health, real stability in the way I felt, and a sense of control over my life and a sense of peace in my body. I remember the first time I I completed a yoga class and I had mostly just laid there. I did some very gentle stretching, but mostly I just laid there and breathed intentionally. Of course, we're always breathing, but is it with intention? Mostly not. That's the difference. The difference between a yoga class and a fitness class, which I used to take obsessively for calorie burn, what is the breathing component? That's really what makes yoga yoga. So after an hour of really just breathing and stretching and being on this mat and being in this beautiful room with these beautiful sounds and these beautiful teachings, and it was almost like I felt a release in my body that I didn't know I could feel that good. I had never felt a lack of anxiety in my body since about 6 years old, when I really experienced my first real trauma in my childhood when I was 6.
Yeah.
So it was like, but that anxiety had become such a part of my body that I didn't know you could live without it. And it was like releasing it felt like telling me that not everyone has arms. It was like, wait, not everyone walks around with this feeling of heavy dread and vibration and just, not able to relax because you just never know where your next hit's going to come from, whether it's emotionally or physically or, so yeah, so it was just a real turnaround once I opened my eyes and started to embrace these things that I had previously closed off, that I started to feel better. And it truly took me out of a suicidal crisis. I say that quite seriously because I was, of course, seeing psychiatrists. I was in the partial hospitalization program. I was taking all the medications I was being told to take, going to all the therapy sessions, and I was getting worse instead of better and more hopeless. And once I opened my eyes to things that I thought were previously crazy, I started to feel better and I started to want to live and started to want to be here and, raise my boys. So call me crazy. I'd rather be crazy than dead, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know today you want to discuss a little bit about the spiritual private investigation work, what you do. To explain this, this is fascinating.
Thank you. So yeah, now you can go to my website. It's www.chs, which stands for Compassionate Healing Services, yoga.com. You can read all about it, but I'm happy to recap it here. So it's by far my most unique service. It's new on my website, but certainly not new to my client base. And what I can do, if you give me the name of a spirit that you're looking to connect with, anyone who has crossed over that you're looking to reconnect with their details, their name, their date of birth, their date of death, things they like, things about them, let me get to know them. I can use my skills to find them, to find them where they are now, which is in everything. Everything is energy and energy is everything. When we leave these physical bodies, we know that energy is not created nor destroyed. The same is true of the energy of our souls. So these, it's such a misnomer that this came from certainly my Catholic background, that the people who have crossed over are floating on a cloud. If they were lucky enough to get into heaven, they're floating on a cloud waiting for you to die, right? And join them in paradise. And in actuality, these are energies that are very much present with you today, aware of you, guiding you, calling you toward the realization that they're still there. So when you open up to that reality and you start to actually live, you start to live the life that you came to live and be the person you came to be, and drop all the ego stories about your unworthiness and your traumas. And yes, I experienced a lot of traumas, but I'm who I am because of that, and not in spite of them. So I can't see them in sometimes in anything but a compassionate light, right? So that's in becoming this person I used to think was crazy. I'll just keep using the label and I'll keep identifying myself as crazy if it allows people to see that it's actually in the embracing of the fact that I'm highly sensitive, that I can and always have been able to perceive things that other people can't perceive. I had my first psychic experience when I was 6. Very psychic, knowing that my brother was going to be severely injured. And even though he was older than me and he was a bully to me and I didn't want to generally be around him, when he missed an appointment and showed up late to it, I did not want to leave him. And I was very scared that something was going to happen to him. And sure enough, something terrible happened. He wound up falling off his bike and almost severing his ear off. So, and I had a strong knowing that something bad was going to happen, but that was never validated for me. It was, oh, that's a coincidence. And as I went on and I had this Catholic upbringing and I was told that things like, being able to feel things so intensely, even things that don't belong to you, feeling the emotions of other people, feeling the energies of other people, knowing things because they come from a higher source of guidance, not because you learn them in a book. That keen intuition, which our intuition is just our most natural instinct. It's the impulse that we want to do before the ego story goes about why we shouldn't do it, why it's too crazy, why it's never going to work, why that person's not going to say yes if we ask them out. All those things that hold us back, that fear, right? And when you just allow yourself to follow your intuition, I now, I offered a workshop in the recent past called Intuition is Another Word for God.
Yeah.
Because I used to believe that God was this judgmental white man in the sky, frankly. And then I turned away from that very strongly for 18 years and lived in a completely, atheistic mindset, very proudly so. It was very much science, if you couldn't prove it with the scientific method. I didn't want to hear about that. And now I'm very much in the middle, I would say. But the God I understand now is not a higher power. It's an inner power. It's when you find that space, whether it's through yoga, whether it's through music, whether it's through being in nature, whether it's in church, maybe that is where you find that peace, and bless you, but it's not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
You can go to church to find your inner peace, but you don't have to go to, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Find your inner peace outside of church. So once you get into that space of inner peace and intuition, your intuition can speak to you. It's a voice. Probably sounds a lot like your own voice, or it's a voiceless voice, but it's a knowing. It's an urge. It's guidance. It really is guidance. And again, it's an embracing my crazy that I finally started to really live. So it's a message that I want to get out there to anyone listening.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. My goodness. Wow. And so you mentioned you had this ability since you were 6, right? But you didn't really tap in or tune into it until you, as an adult. Now here you are, and you've worked through a lot, and we've talked about it last time, and you're now helping so many other people who have gone through so much. And with this gift, with this talent, before we continue, just a few of the things you can help people with, if you don't mind, and then we'll continue with like our structured notes.
Absolutely. Just
Thank you.
Reiterate the question for me.
Oh, sure. Just
so sorry.
A few different ways that someone's listening, who's been listening, a few different ways that your abilities can help people. I know you can connect to loved ones, but what are some of the other things that your work benefits from?
Well, I always say my real job is to cut out the middleman. I want to be that person that inspires you to your own intuition, to really find that space in your own day and prioritize, or even just open your mind to things you previously thought ridiculous. If everything that you've tried to this point isn't working, of course, if what you're doing is working, great, keep doing that. But for people who aren't finding any answers in what's traditionally being offered, or truly doing what's required of them or told they should do and getting worse instead of better, what do you have to lose at that point, right? Rather than lose your life or kill yourself, rather why don't you rather change everything about your life? Change absolutely everything. If the other alternative is dying, maybe maybe your answer is quit the job, divorce the husband, and see where you're at on the other side of that. And I'm speaking from very personal experience. All those things happened for me. And as I said, I really finally landed in a space where I finally felt happy, and I finally felt empowered truly for the first time in my life. So very much, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. I mean, I know you yourself, unfortunately, had thoughts of suicide in the past, and these are things that you could, help people with. And you said, quote, "I'd rather be crazy than dead. And you say that, of course, but your understanding with your high level of sensitivity can help others out there who may be going through similar situations and help them talk them down from the ledge in a sense. Also, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about how dangerous it is when it comes to gaslighting children, right? Out of their own intuitive knowing and their spiritual gifts, and kind of, could you share that aspect as well?
Absolutely, and they're related because if you are a child like I was, who has always been in touch with these sensitivities to these energies and these intuitive knowings, and then we're taught through systems and family structures out of those, or gaslighted is the term for it, you likely have a lot of struggles now with mental health, with addiction, for possibly, and with suicidal thinking, and are at higher risk for these things. So obviously the ideal would be for children to never be gaslighted away from it in the first place. And I use that term to really convey the gravity of the consequences of it. But what it looks like is very common, right? Gaslighting a child might be, saying, maybe that your child tells you they have an imaginary friend, or they have very specific dreams about family members that have crossed on, and you say, oh, sweetheart, that's not real. That's not real. That, everyone does that. A lot of people do that because the parent themselves might be afraid of it, right? They don't, or they're just in a state of non-belief, so they're not going to validate their child. That can look like your child falls down, skins their knee, and is truly, very, very upset about it. And you're like, oh, it doesn't hurt that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. You don't know what that feels like to your child. When you're highly sensitive, I can tell you, pain sucks.
Yeah.
And I know pain sucks for everybody. I get that. But I have such a low tolerance for pain that if I'm in any amount of pain whatsoever, I truly can't do my job. I can't be this open channel. I can't be the able-bodied physical therapist that I used to be, who, even if I broke my pinky, I couldn't have done my job the way I needed to. So my body has always been something that I've had to really make sure it felt its best. And if I'm in the slightest bit of pain, it's truly excruciating. And then my emotional pain, and how often do we tell kids, oh, you're not sad, you're not angry, you're too much, really even shaming them and punishing them for their emotions. And the consequences of these are severe. And raise your hand if you've ever done them. I'm raising my hand, right? Like, I'm an
Guilty.
extremely imperfect parent. My kids trigger me like no other. And sometimes I have the capacity to be in love and grace and compassion, and other times I lose my proverbial you know what. And I'm imperfect, and I try to apologize, and I try to explain as best I can, and I try to clean up my messes afterwards, but I make messes. So it's very easy to slip up. I get that. But if you don't own that what you're doing is harmful, then you are setting your child up, unfortunately, to be more susceptible to these things that are going to become more and more problematic for all of you as they grow. Small children, small problems; big kids, big problems, right?
Yep.
So it's very, very important for me to spread the message to families with highly sensitive or even intuitive, children see ghosts, children see ghosts, spirits that are really there, but are not perceptible to everyone. Think about your dog. Your dog can clearly smell things you can't, right?
Yeah.
Your dog is constantly smelling things you can, and you don't say, oh, you little faker. You're
Yeah.
not smelling what you're smelling. So why are you telling your kid they're not seeing what they're seeing, or they're not feeling what they're feeling? It's not okay. It's not right. And even if it was done to you, you need to do better.
Wow.
Once you're being taught better, because your child is going to be impacted by it. And then you're going to scratch your head down the lane and say, why is my child struggling so much? Oh, because I didn't listen to them when they were 6 years old and they told me they predicted their own brother would be severely injured.
My goodness. Wow. That is still fascinating. And what else did you want to discuss?
I will check my notes. There is so much.
I know. I don't know if they want to go out of order, or if
we
something's
now have
triggering.
9 episodes. I'm so thrilled to report we now have 9 episodes.
Good.
So we have
Yay.
so much that
Good.
we can clean up. And I'm very much, because my complex PTSD is real, and I oftentimes when I'm in high pressure situations, lose my train of thought. So if I ever do not finish a point, feel free to reel me back, or I'll do so in the next episode. But I do want to I do want to talk about how, so I had alluded before to my previous career as a physical therapist, and did boldly decide in 2022 not to renew my license as a physical therapist after it would have been 20 years in the field. And I had, I want to say, I'll toot my own horn a bit, that I was a great physical therapist. I got my master's degree in 2002 with a 4.0. I went out into the field very enthusiastically, believing that I could do really great work. At that point, my faith had died with the death of my father. And I wanted to circle back. You had said that your mother had passed away.
Yes.
From cancer. My father passed away from lung cancer in 2000. So a shared loss there. But a powerful reason to look for them where they are now, right? Which is so yeah, to circle back to that. So I was already an atheist. I had turned away from my Catholic background, and even 12 years of Catholic education, all girls Catholic high school education. So very much invested in that until I wasn't. And then I really explored atheism with fervor. And I decided that I was doing service. I was in the service profession. So even if I wasn't going to church, I knew that I was doing good work in the community and with my clients, and making sure that I left them a little better than I found them. And I, would always be way behind in my schedule, because instead of just focusing on their physical needs, especially once I transitioned to home care, it was like I was looking around and trying to, oh my goodness, look at all these other needs that aren't being met, which very much drives the work I do today. And so, and I have testimonials of clients all over, from 20 years of practice about that. I felt like that I deeply explored this idea that we are just physical. Between physicism and between the fact that I was a physical therapist, and I viewed the body as a complete mechanism. And in doing so, especially as contained within the healthcare system that is profit driven and dark and has an underside for sure, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, I started, the results I got were very limited, and I felt like I was doing the best possible job that I could do. And yet so many times, even my most best success stories, people who would come to me not being able to walk and left me being able to walk, and I knew that I could take a lot of credit for that. A couple of years later, something else would happen to them medically, and that would set them back tragically, or then their wife would pass away, or, there's so much sadness, and there's so much trauma, and there's so much, it can be very disillusioning, right?
Yeah.
So I really did deeply explore this idea that we are just physical. And it took me coming to my knees in a suicidal crisis back in 2017 for me to really accept, and then a year later to have a very rapid spiritual awakening at a psychic medium workshop. I went there to figure out how he was tricking people, right? And he blew my mind. Instead, it took that for me to realize how wrong I was. And the reason and then it took me feeling the power of Reiki in my own body and through my own hands and the healing work I do with my clients. And then the channeled messages that come through that I know are not from me, they are from higher guidance. And I confirm that with the cards we pull. And it's always a magical experience. And it's meant to be, but again, I'm really trying to cut out the middleman, because I'm just a regular person. I'm a regular person that had no idea about any of this until I was 36, 37 years old. And now at 43 years old, I've just really stopped being shy about what has worked for me and what I believe will work for a lot of people if it becomes accessible. And that's the big asterisk. If it becomes accessible, because currently, even things like deep breathing exercises and meditation and yoga, which are very accessible practices with the right teacher, it requires teaching, right? It requires some access. It requires maybe even some time in your schedule that you're not working 3 jobs back to back, right?
Yeah.
That's where that idea of healing as a privilege comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And just curious, if someone's listening, I just want to remind them of your website again, how we can reach out to you. We still have time to talk.
Absolutely. It's CHS, that stands for Compassionate Healing Services, yoga.com.
Perfect. All right. I know we want to talk, obviously we talked about why you left your career in a sense. We touched upon that. And did you want to go into a little more details on that as well? Or
Well, I
talk a
can
little more
say
about
where
your approach of integrating the Western and Eastern? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So you're never gonna take that physical therapist out of my brain, or you're never gonna
Yes.
take that experience out from under my belt. And I did gather a lot of knowledge in that area, and that has laid a foundation upon which I stand. And now that I understand energy, and I will say, as a Reiki master teacher, I have mastered energy.
And
that's just to say that I've mastered the understanding that me feeling good, which is what alignment feels like. It feels great. It feels great to be in
Yeah.
alignment, and it feels frankly like crap to be anything but.
Yeah.
So if you make your work and you have the privilege to do so, feeling good, and that's not to say that the conditions around you have to look good for you to feel good. If you're waiting for that, you're in deep doo-doo.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You have to become unconditional, and it's why we call it mastery. But when you can do that, and when you can make feeling good your priority, what you start to attract, right? Because this is an attraction-based universe. The law of attraction no more needs you to believe in it for it to work than gravity does, right? You're going to fall out of a tree whether you believe in gravity or have any fundamental understanding of it. The law of attraction's been responding to you since the moment you were born. It's been responding to you, honestly, since long before that, as you gathered your intentions for this lifetime. And here we go again. I'm sounding crazy. Feel free to tune out if that's too much for you. But I just have such an innate knowing that we are not alone, that we are being guided by a higher force, but that guidance is coming from within us. It's not coming from our preachers' mouths. It's not coming from our mother's mouth. It's not even coming from our spouse's mouths. It's coming from within us. And it's frankly coming from the children's mouths, though, that we can say. And we proved that in our first episode when I mentioned an example that your own son had just previously the day before said, which is, where's the Wi-Fi, mommy? I said,
walking through it. You're like,
right.
what?
I said, well, where's the Wi-Fi, right? Where's the Reiki energy? It's there. I promise. I promise you it's there. It's around you and it's within you. And you can see somebody like me who can provide healing for you, or you become Reiki attuned also by someone like me, and do it for yourself and others. And I think if we embrace the woo, if we want to call Reiki that, I hope it becomes far more mainstream than that, because it's far too powerful a tool for us to dismiss any longer.
Yeah.
Just as deep breathing is, and I explained why, or maybe I didn't, and I'll do so now. It's that the intentionality of the breath is what makes it so powerful. You can't take over your blood pressure, at will. You can't take over your temperature or your pulse, but you can take control of your breath. And in doing so, you can control or start to take control of how you feel. How we feel is everything. It's that representation. It's your most sophisticated representation of your vibrational point of attraction, is how you feel. If you feel great, keep going, because the things that are going to attract around you are going to be very much wanted. If you feel crappy, take a nap.
Yep.
Take a nap. Do something that makes you feel better before you start going down those thought trains, because again, the law of attraction is responding to your thoughts. It's not responding to your words. It's responding to your thoughts. It's responding to your vibrations. How you think and how you feel is your best indication of what's coming next.
Beautifully said. Wow. And we're almost out of time, 2 minutes left. So did you want to kind of sum up a little bit of information, how we can reach out to you, of course? And thank you for diving deeper into yourself today and, all that you can help us with.
Yeah, I'll give you all my contact info. So I'll reiterate my website, CHS, Compassionate Healing Services, yoga, chsyoga.com. Compassionate Healing Services is my Instagram account. I am going to be much more regularly posting in the near future. I have just a few posts now, but please follow me there if you can. If you are on Instagram and you want to hear more from me in the near future. I can also be reached at 856-334-0018 or info@compassionatehealingservices.com.
Thank you so much. You're such a sweetheart. And we'll look forward to our next conversation. Thank you. Thank you for remembering my my mom, my son, and condolences to you as well. But they're with us, right? Our parents are with us.
Absolutely. I talk to my dad all day, every day, and it's delightful. And I can teach you to do the same.
Please, we could do that on one of those shows. I would appreciate that. Thank you so much. You have a great day. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.